Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. My name is Brian Vitale. With me today, I have Josh Torres.
It's June. We're here. Finally here.
Adam Vitale.
I like June. June's a good month.
James Galizio.
I'm finally a registered Final Fantasy XIV homeowner.
And Chaomin Wu.
Still homeless.
In case you weren't aware, it is June now. This is our first recording of the year in June, because we've recorded in June in the past of previous years. And suddenly, as we kind of were hoping and expecting, there's all of a sudden a lot to talk about. We had like three independent, maybe more than three independent events that had a bunch of interesting news to come out of it that we are obviously here to discuss as we look at future games coming out this year and next year. Obviously, the biggest of which, I won't bury the lead, is finally some new trailers and new footage and new information about the upcoming Final Fantasy XVI. But also some stuff as well with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. We had a Warhammer event. We've got some news about from the SaGa event that Adam, I know, is interested in talking about, and a couple other things that also just trickled through the week. So we will have a kind of a news-focused episode here, and I think that's fine because, as we've talked about, we're kind of at a little bit of a lull before we look into the late June and mid-July releases of Sunbreak, Xenoblade, Live Alive, and a few other things. So this will be a news-focused episode as we go through our impressions of our impressions and reactions of all the things that that filtered out through the week. But we will still talk a little bit about some of the games we've been playing. I've mainly been playing Chrono Cross. I finally made time for it. I won't spend a lot of time on it here, mainly because we've talked about it last week as Adam has gone through it. But just I want to obviously get through that so we can have a variety of impressions on it as we get into the end of the year stuff, talk about whether it will deserve our Remaster of the Year award. I know that Adam has also been working through like some backlog of his. But we're going to start out with something that Josh has been playing, which I don't know anything about this game. You've written here on our little outline that you've been playing a game called Loopers. You need to start me at ground zero. I do not know what Loopers is. I don't have a picture in my mind. I can Google it while you talk about it. But just walk us through what is Loopers, why are you playing it, and how are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, Loopers is a new visual novel that came out. Its Western release came out on the Switch this week. It was like out on PC in Japan, like I think sometime earlier this year or last year. I don't remember its original release date over there, but its Western release came out on Switch. I know they're planning on a Steam release sometime in the future, but nothing concrete yet on like when that's gonna manifest. They say they're looking into that. This is from the creator of Higurashi, Umineko, Ryukishi. And this is in a collaboration project with Studio Key, and Key is like a well-known visual novel creator from stuff like Clanad or Canon, Angel Beats, and so on and so on. They're very well known. So this is an interesting project to me because I like both of those creators. And I'm always looking forward to seeing what story they have to tell. So Loopers is an interesting one. It's not as like grand scoped as like how key visual novels are, because key visual novels are usually run over like 20 to 30 hours, sometimes even more on them. And then for Ryukishi's side, Higurashi is usually done episodically. This is like a one full release, but it's a more like indie scope project. I would say it like maybe our average read through is maybe about like 5 to 7 hours. Like I barely got done reading it this morning, and like I only maybe since I read fast, it lasted about maybe over 5 hours for me. But it's a really like interesting concept for time travel, as you can tell from the name Loopers. Yeah, it does have some time looping associated with it. But both of these studios have dabbled with time travel in some form or fashion, in their past works. In Loopers, it's kind of you start out with these two like characters, like hero and heroine. You meet Tyler and you meet Hilda. Tyler's really into treasure hunting in real life, geo hunting, and all that type of stuff. Where he'll go on an app on his phone, and then there's like a whole treasure hunter network where like people like kind of hide stuff in the world for other people to find, and when people find it, they kind of put in another treasure and then design another treasure hunt for it. So he's like, that's his hobby. That's what he likes to do. And when you meet Hilda, she's your average like schoolgirl who likes hanging out with her best friend Leona in this. Somewhere along the way, early on in the story, um, things start getting weird. The current date this story starts is like at August 1st, and there are some weird things that start to happen. Like Tyler, Hilda, and Leona kind of meet up with each other. Leona's Hilda's best friend, and like it's been like they've known each other since elementary school. So they're this kind of like, oh, we saw each other again. So like Tyler's kind of like introducing them to like, hey, this is what I'm into now. I'm like into treasure hunting. Um, but along the way, like things start getting weird because Hilda, there's like all like things that happen like within the first like hour of the game, so it's not like big spoilers or anything. Um, where uh Hilda spots like kind of like this ghost girl, or we're not really sure what it's all about. But then things, so some severe things happen after that I won't spoil. But very quickly, Tyler and Hilda uh like go into the next day, and they start figuring out like, oh, for why is it still August 1st? I'm pretty sure I remember hanging out with you and we did this, and that was August 1st. So what's going on? And what makes this a really like interesting time travel story compared to other past time travel stories is that Tyler and Hilda are not the only ones who are experiencing this time travel phenomenon. For them, this is like the first time that it's happened to them. But as you quickly learn early on, you'll meet other people who have been stuck in this August 1st time loop for
Yeah,
some
I
of
was going
them
to ask, is
for
this like an
many
endless eight
years.
type scenario, but it seems like multiple
Or
people retain
Groundhog's
their
Day.
memories.
Yeah, so there are multiple people like who are stuck in this time loop, but all of them have started this time loop at different times. So there are people that you meet that have been stuck at this time loop for maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years. And it really like to to Tyler and Hilda, this is very new but kind of exciting because like you start learning like the rules of this time loop where like everything is sort of reset in the state that you were left off on when you entered the time loop. So let's say you had like uh $2,000 on you at hand. You can spend as much money as you want out of that $2,000 freely in that time loop because once it resets, you'll have that $2,000 back. That's like what like one of the rules about it. Other rules are like if you like get injured or even if you get killed, within the day, you'll still be reset to still being alive and left off of where you were when you entered that time loop. So like you can like take on like many risks, like say like climbing a really high like cable tower or something like it, or like just doing more daring stunts that you wouldn't because now that you don't have the fear of death, um you're willing to do more risks along those lines. So it's a really interesting tale of like w- exploring the phenomenon of like what if you don't have to worry about like those types of like financial restrictions of long term like planning out like how are you going to take care of yourself, how to stay healthy, because you're stuck in a loop and the very next day you're just going to be reset to like wherever you had on you. This and the only thing that really carries with you is your memories alongside that. So it's exploring what you would do in that time frame. How do you like look what do you think of life when you've already feel like you've explored like all there is to do? So for some of these people that have like gone through like a decade or so or multiple decades in this time loop, like to them they've already explored all they wanted to do, so where do you go from there? What kind of happens to you when you start losing like the will to live, to go on, and all that sort of stuff? So it's a really fascinating angle of time
I can
travel.
sort of see like the
Loopers.
horror element there. Like it's like an
Mhm.
internal prison, especially you can't
Mhm.
even very, very grim. Like death isn't even a way out. They're just literally
Yeah,
stuck in like a purgatory loop.
yeah, and like for some people, like you meet a character named Joe, and he's like kind of a bodybuilder type guy who likes working out at the gym, and since the at the start of the loop when you're like reset to your current state, he can't even have like the satisfaction of like building up his muscles, because any like development he does on that day, it'll just get reset the next day. So like he's not really, moving forward with like like trying to improve himself day by
Where
day.
is this
'cause it
game
just-
set? I just sort of internally assumed it was like Tokyo, but like with names like Joe, Hilda, and Tyler. Like,
so
not
like
so sure.
so this one of the weird things. Like it is, this is set in Japan. I
Okay,
don't,
the names aren't really what I expected.
So
But
the weird thing about this is like that's like their nicknames, but like their real names are
Okay.
like are like, say for example, like Tyler, but his real name is like Taira, or for Hilda, like her nickname is Hilda, but her real name is like Hiruda. So like they use the romanizations as like nicknames. Like I haven't actually seen like the original script. I've only read the English once. I don't know exactly how that is handled in the original scripts for the game, but I thought that was also weird as well, where they're using like kind of like romanized Western forms of their given names as like their nicknames. And I don't know if that's one of those like lost in translation type of things. Like it's hard to, get this point across without severely like changing the meaning or whatnot. So that's one of the things that stood out to me. I was like, I don't know, but the actual like visual novels are there's a good way to do them and there's a bad way to do them. Oddly enough, and that all depends on like how you navigate and like how easy it is to read. This game is really really good with like features as a visual novel. It's like a one touch like quick save. There's multiple fonts to choose from. You can choose like how obviously like this has been a standard for visual novels for many years now, but text speed and having it be instant, window transparency, even like changing like the border of the window to like a different color, and then setting the voice level for like every single like person in the game. So like if someone sounds too loud, you don't have to like put down everyone's audio level. You can put down that certain person's audio level down, be more normalized compared to the rest of the cast. So it's like it's your standard like visual novel features, but like there's still like a few visual novels here and there that like don't have like the full package of like intuitiveness to maneuver around. And like how, and it's pretty cool how this game like animates like say like even just like loading up a save. Like it'll just like when you load up a save through like a window, like it'll just pop it on the screen like seamlessly instead of like having to like do a load or something to get to that point, which is it doesn't ever take you out of that. But it's hard to talk about this game without like spoiling it outright because it's very easy to do that.
Well, without a spoiler, like how does it
yeah.
incorporate this time loop versus the theme of like this treasure hunting sort of aspect to this one character?
So it is a kinetic visual novel, meaning that like there's no choices, there's no branching paths. It's just basically you start the story, you read it, and then it ends at a certain point, and like you never made any choices along the way. So there's not like any gameplay elements to it. It is strictly just like a novel to read. So like everything that's like incorporated with like the treasure hunting and how the story unfolds, like the treasure hunting aspect of it, it is pretty important to the plot. I can't say how because that'll spoil it, but it is pretty integral into the way that like how it presents its role for the other characters in the story. Let's say so. All I can say is it's important, but there's not like any gameplay elements to it. I'm not gonna say that like it's like the best visual novel ever or anything like that. Like but I think it's a pretty solid visual novel for something for like people who want to read like just for a few hours, like a simple short story. Like it's like $25 on the eShop, which is it's up to you whether the value is good or not. For like $25 like a 5 to 7 hour kinetic visual novels for I can imagine for some people that's kind of a deal breaker, but for people who are willing to like are open and open minded to the concept and are willing to spend that amount, go for it. It's a visual novel I don't have like any have major complaints about overall, but like it's not like super like it's like it doesn't put like the medium like to the next level or something. It's like it's solid, it's good. It's like I enjoyed it. And if you're interested in like in time travel stories, then like definitely pick it up. It's a good read.
Would
It
you
is-
prefer having branching paths for this game, or just
But the way it crafts its story, no, I'm fine with it not having like branching paths or like or gameplay elements or or like choosing between like romantic partners or whatnot or like having like character routes. Like I don't think this type of game or this type of like visual novel and story like it kind of lose a lot of its meaning to what it's trying to tell. It's not like one of those like visual novels that's like eerie about like how characters view each other. It's actually pretty mature in that aspect, especially because even though some of them look like high schoolers, some of them are obviously much older than that because of the time loop aspect to it of like they've lived longer than their appearance lets on.
That is kind of an interesting twist to it, like what your mental age is. It seems like the Switch has become kind of a decent little console for visual novel ports. So I don't know if it feels like it's picked up momentum. As someone who only hears from these like through people like you, Josh, who has kind of goes through them and kind of keeps me in the know a little bit about what's coming out. I don't know. It just seems like it's been a really convenient console for experiencing these, which a lot of times have been previously kind of sequestered away on PC, which might not be the most proper format for these, which is where this game originally released last year in Japan.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad like it came over here in an official form because I've had my eye on it, but I'm like I was just kind of waiting to it, and like I'm glad that it turned out pretty well. Like I enjoyed my time with it, and they were all pretty cool by the end of the day. I was like, yeah, there's a really good ensemble that they have here.
Well, thank you, Josh, for giving your impressions on Looper, a game that otherwise I would not hear about. So it's cool to kind of see your perspective on games like that otherwise would have not been like within my purview. As we were talking about games to discuss ahead of our news laden cast today, James was pretty eager to talk about as he introduced himself with today's podcast about how he is now a homeowner, at least in Final Fantasy XIV. And I actually asked him outright, how much is there to that? Because I really don't know. Obviously, we had kind of the kerfuffle a few months back about some of the issues with the home raffle process. So, James, go ahead and tell us like what actually happened with getting your house in Final Fantasy XIV and what that all involves and why you were so eager to talk about it.
So first off, I do want to say that I'm not going to talk about all of my issues with the state of housing in 14 because I am writing up something about it. Long story short, the current system is undoubtedly better than it was before, and I guess I can kind of talk about that. With patch 6.1, they made the change that instead of housing being a first come first serve type deal, now it's based off of a lottery system, and any houses that are or any plots that are available for purchase will only go up for purchase with a lottery during a bidding window. That's basically on a rolling release where it's like constantly switching between here's when you can bid for houses, here's when you can claim houses if you won or get your money back if you lost the lot. So on paper, it's a lot better because before as kind of like a misguided attempt to prevent people from botting to get houses as soon as they hit the market. They had it so it was first come first serve, and they did not list when they would be available. You'd see the placard, and it would just say if you tried to purchase it, not available for purchase yet. So the idea was at least, oh well, if we let people know a date, people will just have a bot that instantly clicks as soon as it goes up for sale. But you probably already can see the issue here where it's like if you don't know when it's going to go live, the only people that would actually be able to just constantly stand there clicking that placard would be bots, unless you literally were spending like hours upon hours on end just standing in front of this lot clicking this placard over and over.
Either a
terrible
bot or
system.
some sort of like keyboard macro that just keeps checking it or something.
And of course, that meant that if you wanted to get a house, you could not engage with other content while you weren't sure when the house is going to be available. Because you can see the placard, you can see the land, but you don't know when it's going to be available. So you just got to keep going and going and going until you
They
either
have a
get the house.
dedicated machine just to bot it up, just outside of your main PC. Easily the easiest way.
Yeah, but anyways, the new system is a lot better in the sense that it's now a lottery system. Unfortunately, they did mess some things up, and I will be going over that in the article. I think the main thing that I can point to is that when they added in the new housing wards with 6.1, they made a change to the way that in addition to the lottery system, which I think everyone or almost everyone agrees is a good change, they also made it so that specific wards would be only eligible for bidding for either free companies or personal housing. Uh, they totally misread like how many people wanted personal housing and how many people wanted free company housing. Well, I can understand the idea of, well, you want to make sure that every free company that wants a free company estate can get one. If you just look, at least on Leviathan, which is one of the larger North American servers, if you just look on Leviathan's Imperium wards, so the newest housing district, and you look at all of the districts that are specifically, or wards that are specifically for free companies, most of them are nowhere close to being populated. Yet you look at the personal wards, and there is almost nobody left. Like everything is completely filled with like one or two exceptions, and the only reason those exceptions exist is if somebody, because people migrated from another ward, maybe they upgraded to a medium, they like put themselves down for a lottery for a medium in a different housing area. Maybe they won it. Now they suddenly, there's like one out of like 60 plots in this one district available, and that's it. And this is a problem throughout all of the housing districts, through all the wards. There's also the problem where if people migrated from one of the older districts to Ishgard and they were in a grandfathered zone, so like a zone that's now free companies only, but they were a personal, if they moved, instead of there being 1440 new personal, well, the number of new houses that were added overall was 1440, but instead of there being, let's say, I think it's 360 personal houses added, if somebody migrated from a ward that's now a free company house, that's one less like personal house that's actively available for players that want to get a personal house.
Is a free
really
company
complicated.
house is free company house basically like a guild hall sort of thing?
Yes.
All right, and that's the only option that free companies have for like an instance place to call their own.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, you're saying, despite that, way more people are wanting the personal houses, and they did not recognize that.
Yeah. Like the
So tell us,
balance is not even close.
So tell us about, I guess, your house. Like once you have a house, I assume that you can like decorate it or things like that. I don't know if you can put like armor sets or weapon sets up that you've gathered, or like I'm not exactly sure. Like once you have a house, what are the capabilities that are unlocked to you that makes them so desirable and has this lottery system in place for?
Okay, so first off, and this is one thing that people are a bit contentious about, houses are in districts, so you'll have neighbors, and you'll actually be able, if they're there, you'll be able to see them like in their yard or walking around doing stuff. And you can also see how people have decorated their houses. If they're available for people to go inside and check, you can see how their interiors look, that sort of thing. Um, there is a gardening feature in 14 that's really in depth, but the only way you can engage with it is if you have a house, because you can't do it in apartments, and you need to basically put up a gardening plot in your front yard before you can engage with it. And there's like some things that you can only really get through engaging with gardening, like chocobo onions. You can get a few if you do specific side quest chains, but if you want to fully max out your chocobo, you either have to pay for a chocobo onion or grow some yourself, and those can be really expensive.
So that can also be a money source, an income for you if you manage your garden.
Yeah, and specifically for free companies, not for anyone that's in a personal house. You can also, if you have a free company housing, you can set up vehicles for expeditions like submarines and stuff to get materials, which can also eventually be used for crafting stuff for like the estate, and also for free company buffs, which will apply for everyone in a free company for a specified period of time, stuff like that. The main reason I feel like the main reason probably why people want these is it's a bit of a status symbol, and also because you can decorate them, obviously. And one of the things I am going on, kind of touching on in that article I'm writing about is for a lot of people that have so much time in 14, it just makes sense that for what's a virtual home for them, that they want to have like something to kind of signify that. And especially with the way that the housing system works, having an actual like tangible impact on the game as a whole that you can point to and say, look, that is my space in this game, like specifically mine. There's something cool about that.
Now, is there an economy built around like purchasing decorations or carpets or wallpaper, furniture, or like is that like a whole like just list of items that people can craft and sell and buy?
Yes, yes.
So there's basically a whole economy around creating and using decorations, which is really cool.
Yeah, I remember when the Ishgard housing first came out. There, you can get Chocobo stables from the housing vendor for like 250k gold or gil, and people didn't know that, so I was like selling them for like double the price on the market board, and people were buying them, which is
Hmm.
kind of funny. But yeah, I've had a good time with the house. I guess one thing that's kind of a knock-on like effect of houses being so hard to get, because let me put it this way: like there was a let's see if I can find this infographic people put together for here we go. There was a infographic that somebody put together for one specific server, Sargentanus, I think that's how you pronounce it. And they basically went over how many people participated in the second round of the lottery. So no new actual houses, but just like kind of the knock on the trickle down effects of it all. There was only 94 plots total available for people to bid on for personal houses. 1 out of 8 active players placed bids, which was over 2,119. The average chance to win was only 4.4%, and over 24 billion gil was committed to the bids. And the average bidders for a small was just shy of 20. The average bidders for a medium was just shy of 40, and the average bidders for a large was over 75. So if you wanted to get anything more in this, well, if you wanted to get anything, it was going to be really difficult. But especially if you were going for one of the larger plots, it was like saying, well, all of them were single digit percentage like chances of getting a house, but it just got worse and worse the larger the house was and what you were going for and whatnot.
How does the guild play in then?
Honestly, not very much. It's just like because the way the lottery system works is you have to put down the full price of the house and you get it back if you lose the bid, but you basically have to say, here, I have all the money you would need to purchase it, and I am putting this into the lottery. So the 24 billion gil is just like the amount of gil that was dedicated for that lottery overall.
So it's not really a bid in terms of like an auction or anything like that. It's literally just like a ticket.
Yeah.
Okay. And who sets the price of the house?
It's determined by the size of the plot and its location.
Gotcha.
So
I
you'll
didn't
have,
know
like-
if like the price went up if more people bid on it or anything like that.
Yeah, no. But yeah, it's definitely not ideal, especially since there's plenty of housing still available in the free company sections of these housing districts. They really need to rebalance it. A lot of people will say, well, maybe there shouldn't be player housing at all, since like the main parties that benefit from this are free companies, since they get like gameplay like improvements in regards to like if you're a free company, you want to be able to get those buffs, you want to be able to send out those expeditions and all that. Which sure, but the problem is that on the flip side, why isn't that just available for single players? Why isn't gardening more widely available? Why can't you just do that in an apartment? You can get an apartment if you just want to have a house. Well, if you want to have something that's not specifically a house, or if you can't get one, why do you specifically need a house in order to do gardening, which is a relatively in-depth like aspect of this game? And not to mention that's like with how like difficult it is to get a house, it's kind of glaring that housing is like the one system in 14 that forces you to stay subbed. Because if you do not visit your house every 45 days, it will automatically get demolished as long as automatic demolishing is enabled. Another problem with housing for the last like 2 years is that between COVID and the launch issues with Endwalker and now the housing problems with the lottery, it's been a complete clusterfuck. I think there's only been like 2 or 3 months throughout the entire like last 2 years where automatic demolishing has actually been enabled or something like that. So, but normally if you want to own a house, if you want to keep your house, especially since it's super difficult to get one even now, like I mean, the easiest time to get one in the last like several years was when Ishgard's housing became available. And like I was incredibly lucky getting mine because the number of people that bid on mine was like 18. And it's like, that's a really low chance. Not
It
to
does
mention, I was
it does
really
seem kind of
lucky
that it stinks that that you have these gameplay systems that are tied behind chance.
yeah.
Like if you wanted to have like a max chocobo, it's like, well, gotta roll my 4% dice at getting a house if I want. I don't care about the house, but
Well,
I
you
care
can
about a
buy
chocobo or whatever.
well, you
Oh,
can
I guess
buy
you could buy it.
those
That's
on
true.
the market board, but it's like if you wanted to go through the process of like making them yourself, you have to like win the dice roll, and then there's like the whole thing with again like it's just a mess. People also say, oh, well, they should just make houses instanced. The problem is twofold. One, now anyone that purchased a house specifically because of the neighborhood aspect would very rightfully be pissed if they changed the system to be instanced. And the dev team would never do that change, would never go through with that change because they have been very explicit about if somebody like if they purchased something or they did something that wasn't against the rules at the time, even if the rules get changed, they will get grandfathered in. And there are many players across every server in the game that specifically wanted a house for neighborhoods. And that change just would be even more of a clusterfuck than how housing has been over the last like month and a half. And then even more importantly, and this is something I kind of go into in my article I'm writing on it, is that instanced housing wouldn't be the band-aid solution, well, the magical solution everyone thinks it would be. Because one, anytime somebody goes to an FC house or anytime anyone goes into their own personal house, that's still a server being spun up or an instance being spun up that is utilizing resources. But even when people aren't going to be in a house, the data for the house's configuration is still going to have to be stored somewhere. So maybe there will be less of a strain on the servers if it's instanced, but there's no way to tell if it's actually going to be a significant improvement. And combined with everything else I've said, I just don't see it being a feasible, like actual like solution to the problem.
It feels like an unsolvable problem at this point, and like
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
what I was gonna-
one of those things that like people will just have to kind of live with it and like just nod to it and like just acknowledge that like this is just the way things are because like
Yeah.
it feels like any type of like route you go to try to find a solution, there's like this big roadblock of like, well, it can't be done, essentially, and like and I think it just like the whole thing that stinks to me about it as an outsider is like it feels like if you're getting a house, like you're chained by it, you're committed to this FF14 sub, or else like if you leave it alone for too long, like all the commitment that you did to get that house is just gonna disappear because like say that like you got bored of the game and want to unsub, you
Or
know.
maybe you're like hit on rough times and you can't afford to
Yeah.
sub a month. It's like that
Yeah,
people shouldn't be
that sucks.
punished for that.
Yeah,
And
it's
also, like, I mean, I sometimes see in other online games where it's like I haven't played in 2 years. It would suck to like it almost becomes like this permanent like divorce where it's like, well, I would still play Final Fantasy 14, but I had a house and then I didn't play for 4 months and I was thinking of coming back, but man, I miss my house. Just seems kind of unfair.
yeah.
Now, to be fair, I do think the current situation will be improved a bunch with the changes that are happening later this year with regards to They're adding an additional like North American data center. They're adding more servers overall for like Japan and whatnot. Like, so as soon as they add more servers, like each of those servers are going to add a significant number of new houses to the overall game. But the problem is that it, how many people that actually have a house are going to make the move?
Yeah, I
That
think
and
I
it's
don't
like,
think I don't think opening up new servers is like it'll be a temporary solution to like to ease it. But I think the overlooming problem is like that feels permanent
yeah.
because it's gonna be first come first served at the end of the day when it comes to that stuff.
Now, I guess
Not to mention,
as like a final thought, I was just wondering, like, what's the first thing that you once you had your house, like, what are you using it for first off?
gardening, because like I said, it's the only way to do it.
So that's your immediate focus is to get into gardening.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like are you planning on doing it for the chocobo yourself or to try to see if you can make some money off it?
A little
Or
bit
just
of
kind of
column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, or maybe just enjoying the system for what it is. All right, well, I guess good luck with your new place. I guess let us if you notice any weird stories with your neighbors or if you upgrade to a larger plot or how you decide to decorate it or how it gets interfaced in the future or if the solution ends up being found or if more troubles arise, I'm sure you'll keep us informed about all the goings on there. When's the next major update for the game? Because I know we talked about Newfound Adventure about a month ago, but I don't really know like what the status of Final Fantasy XIV is right now.
There is an update next week for 6.15, which will be adding in a few side quests. Nothing super major, but yeah, that's coming.
All right, another game that kind of came out this week in some format is I've seen a lot, unlike Looper, which Josh talked about earlier, I have seen a fair bit of chatter about this one, and that's because I think it's a series that some of us kind of grew up with and we haven't seen in a while, and that's the newest entry in Mario Strikers with Mario Strikers Battle League. We had an open beta that's made the game available to play, and I have heard some mixed things about people's impressions with this game and with the beta so far. And it sounds like Josh has gone hands on with it. So I don't know. I guess I don't want to color the conversation. Maybe I'm too late for that. But Josh, you put some time into Mario Strikers Battle League. I guess without any preamble, what's your thoughts?
There's like a weird like open beta because it's multiplayer focused, but you can do like the tutorials to get yourself acclimated with like the controls and then do some training stuff. But like the meat of it, like the multiplayer sessions, only happen during 1 hour periods at like 3 times a day. So like the first period was like last night from 8 to 9 p.m. Pacific time, and then like there was another period like 4 to 5 a.m. Pacific. I only did the 8 to 9 Pacific. As of the time of this recorded, right this very moment on Saturday,
You're playing right now.
11:56 a.m. No, there's gonna be a session about to open up in 4 minutes as of the time of this recording. That I know I'll wait to play with friends later tonight on it, but it's kind of like a weird time limited type deal just for this weekend too. So I don't remember much about like all the systems that like was like in the first Mario Strikers. I think that was on the GameCube. I want to say
That's the one I played.
Yeah, I want to say that was like the first one, right? So like I'm not exactly sure like what's like kind of legacy, what's new, but it's a pretty in depth game as you're going through the tutorials. You know, you have your just for the demo alone, like it's like 2v2. But like each of the two players controls up to two people, like or they choose two characters, and then both of those players like cycle between those four as you're playing them. And I think this game in its final release, I think they said it'll support up to 5v5, and I think you can have like up to like parties of five. I think I don't remember what they advertised for it, but like I'm already thinking like it already with two players playing two people, like it already feels like chaotic. It's like very fast paced, and so forth. I'm just like, man, can you imagine what 5v5 with like five players on each team are like? Like that's crazy. So you know you're going to the tutorials. You learn about obviously shooting, passing with pass and lobs, and then you know your defensive options between tackling, charge tackling, uh, opponents, then you'll start getting into like stuff like power shots, where like you can do like powered up like passes and shots if you let go of the button right before they like it approaches a teammate. So for example, if I would do like a power shot with someone and an incoming pass, like I have Mario and I press B to do a pass, and now as I press B and the ball is traveling towards like Peach and she wants to make a shot, you can do like a powered up shot where you start queuing up a shot through A, and then as the ball's about to approach Peach, you let go of A to and then if you do it at the proper time where you let go of A, she'll do like a snap power shot towards the goalie. The goalie is like all AI controlled too. No one has actually played goalie from the demo. I don't know if that's going to be like in the full game or not, if they'll allow the goalie to be controllable. So it's very very a lot of systems going on in it. Obviously, you have dashing and you have like dodge rolling, and those take up a stamina meter. As the matches are going, there'll be like Mario Kart sort of item boxes out in the field where you can like pick them up, and then you can store up to 2 items, and then you can fire them off when you have them, like green shells, red shells, bombs, banana peels, and all the good stuff. And it's a lot of fun. It's very fast paced. I can see like why you were saying it's like the reception's a bit divisive. I've already spoken to some people who says, "Oh, it feels way too fast paced. Like I can barely keep up what's going on." Some people are like, "I don't even want to touch online right now because I feel so inadequate going through the tutorials." Like,
the main thing that I've heard is that it seems way more multiplayer focused. Yeah, the original game had 1v1 and 2v2, but now it just seems like
I don't know. Like,
if the original game also had, I hope my nostalgia is not playing tricks on me, but I think it also had like a pretty darn thorough like 1-player campaign tournament mode sort of thing, which ended up actually being quite difficult.
I don't know exactly what the final game's like single player offerings and full modes will look like. Like I have done very little like research on this game, like up until the open beta, because I'm just like, I don't know, because once some of my friends and I found out, it'll be like, oh, you can play with friends, like we're like, okay, we should go try it out and see how it is. What we thought was like they're gonna be like up to like 5 people parties to like queue up with each other in the open beta, but that's not the case. You can only queue up with one other friend. So like the most you can play with is like 2v2, where you and your friend control 2 characters each on a team. Obviously, like in the original Mario Strikers, every character has like their own preset stats. You have like Mario, Luigi, Toad, Daisy, or not Daisy, Peach, Rosalina, Wario, Waluigi, Donkey Kong, and Yoshi. And they all have like their own set of stats, like their strength, their stamina, speed. But then something that's like kind of locked in the demo you can't really engage with is like you can equip gear as well, and like the gear will like alter their stats.
It's an RPG.
That's it. And like apparently I don't know exactly how the gear will manifest. Like I don't think it's like additive. From what I heard, it's like when you equip gear, and like you'll get +2 to like a certain stat, but like -2 to another. So maybe like gears maybe more of a trade-off situation instead of like instead of like buffing up like your character consistently to be like God or something. So maybe gear is more of like a way to tweak characters, but having some trade-offs with them. But you can't really engage with that in open beta, so it's hard to see how that will manifest in the full game. There's also like a mechanic where you see in like the trailer for the game, like when they first showed it off, there's like this like ink style to the game where like there'll be like some parts of like the game where like a character will do like a super animation. It's like all very heavily outlined and very stylish. And
well, yeah, like the cover art.
Yeah, and like how that is in the game is where at certain points there'll be like an orb that like descends onto the field, and like whoever gets the orb, it'll like light up your character, the full team who got it. And if they try to do a successful charged power up shot at the enemy side of the field for like trying to make a shot in, while they have that orb and like kind of light it up, it'll go into like this like weird mini game where like there's like a pip traveling at the bottom of your character, like sort of like a meter. It's sort of like golf, where you have to like line it up to like a certain like highlighted region correctly, and then on the way back highlight another region correctly. So let's say there's like an orange zone and a blue zone. If you want like a guaranteed like goal, you have to line it up at blue at both sides when the pip is traveling back and forth. And then if you line up on blue, there's no way that the opponents can like stop that shot. So a successful shot in that mode will get you an automatic 2 points. If you do not line up correctly on the two blues, then any error that you make makes it so that you're less likely to make that shot. So that's how that mechanic works. And and just multiplayer, just even the 2v2 of this open beta that I played, it's a lot of fun, but it's very, very frantic, and you have to be very quick on your feet and thinking and thinking about like who's making the shots, who's passing, because there are some characters that are really good at passing, like Rosalina, and there are some characters that are very good at tackling other characters like Wario and Donkey Kong, where like and like how's its stats come into play is like say Toad is trying to steal the ball from like someone like Wario. Toad can't do that like on a normal tackle. Toad has to like a perfect charge tackle to get them, because obviously they're like Toad is not like built to successfully do that just like on a like just normally taking it away.
It sounds so silly, but I pulled up the Mario Strikers Battle League wiki page. Toad has 9 strength. Wario has 17 strength.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like Wario is really good at like harassing like goalies, where the Wario can get up close and like no one can really contend and like him having the ball unless they do a charge tackle. So like Wario can make plays where like he'll do a shot and then like it'll bounce off someone or the goalie, and then like continue to do it again and again until you get possession back. So yeah, but obviously like but Wario's like average speed is way slower than like most other people's as a trade-off. So Wario isn't good at like traveling the field on that. So
Wario has 9 speed.
That's right.
Toad has
Look at
17
Toad.
speed.
Mm-hmm.
Is Toad
So
the fastest?
you have to make go for it.
I was like, is Toad the fastest? But no, Peach also has 17 speed. It's an RPG,
Yeah,
guys.
Toad and Peach are like the fastest. But like Rosalina is really good at like really fucked up things. She's really good at passing, and she's really good at like having the ball travel in weird trajectories on like longer shots. So Rosalina isn't like doesn't travel that fast, but she has like weird shit going on with her on the how the way she shoots and the way she passes. So you have to kind of.
It's interesting that you have a Rosalina, but there is no Daisy. Like, huh?
Yeah,
Crazy.
so maybe, I don't know if she's gonna be in the final roster or not. I don't know if there's all the characters yet, but yeah. So like you have to make those considerations when you're team building with your partner. As you're taking to online. Obviously, you can play this game by yourself as well. I assume so in the final game. I don't know if it is if that's how it is in the open beta. I've only played with a friend. I haven't done solo queue or anything, but. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very frantic. You have to make a lot of like snap decisions. The ball will go back and forth between like you trying to like pass it really fast and them intercepting. It's ton of fun. I really like the core gameplay loop. I know a lot of people are very we don't know about it yet, but it's already clicking with me and some friends. But the net play is very hit and miss. Like the net code isn't that great. Like sometimes it'll feel like I'm like dialing in my mic buttons, and then those actions will only come out like maybe 3 to 5 seconds later, which is way too late. And obviously that probably it depends on like the connection quality of like everyone in the match. So I assume a lot of people are playing this on Wi-Fi or not great connections, and that kind of makes it trickier to do like some of the stuff that's like more timing focused, like say like a perfect dodge or doing perfect power shots or power passes, and even doing like that little mini game with the orb. Like sometimes the input lag can get in the way of that. So it's one of those things like you just kind of have to roll with it. You kind of know what you're expecting at this point, because the net code for this game can't really. I don't know. I wish it was better, but I don't know how you'd make it better with some, because at some point it's gonna be about the connection quality of the other players too.
Mhm.
But But it's a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm gonna pick up the full game yet. I'm gonna play tonight again with some other friends and see how we feel about it. But like but we're generally like on the same page of like we like the core gameplay, but the netcode is hit and miss. But it's a lot
Does
of
it
fun.
have does it have any local options?
I think it does have local play. I don't know if it has LAN support. That'd be really cool if it does, but I don't know if it supports that. But other than that, it's to me this is like I like it a lot. I really like the frantic pace of it. It feels like because like Nintendo has been coming out with like Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, and now Mario Strikers. And like I like Mario Tennis, but but it had such a short lifespan for me because like they remember in the recent Mario Tennis game they were trying teasing like this will have like a robust like single player mode, and it's like and then the single player mode didn't really do much at the end. And then Mario Golf, I didn't pick that up because I was like, oh, like I thought I was gonna pick up Mario Golf, and then once the reports started coming out, it's like, oh, the RPG mode in this is like half baked. It's not nowhere near like the Game Boy Advance, you know.
I
Mario
remember when
Golf.
Alex like, go ahead, James.
We just need to accept that we're never going to get a Mario sports game as based as Advanced Tour ever again.
I know. I really had my hopes up for for the Mario Golf, and then it's like, oh, they're bringing back RPG mode stuff. It's like, no, it's not really that. It's like, oh, so I was dead set on getting Mario Golf until I heard that like it just was half baked in that aspect, and I'm like, never mind. I feel you've disappointed me, and then it feels like, and then from my point of view, like a lot of like the talk about that game has died down considerably since its release. Like it feels like it didn't have the staying power as maybe a lot of people wanted it to. So I don't know exactly how that shook out. So with Mario Strikers here, like I don't know exactly what like the longevity of this game is. It seems to have like a lot of like robust features, like in the terms of like you can like start like your own club with up to 20 people, and like there will be seasons like that last for like 1 week, like 1 week rotations where like it's 1 week on season, 1 week off season. And like depending on how well you do, you can like earn up like new jerseys and new like cosmetics for your club.
For some reason, I
And
like the idea of like 20-man raid static. Nah, this is my football team.
yeah, exactly. That reminds me the tutorial NPC that's giving you it is like it's called Footbot, FUT bot.
Mhm.
Very good. So yeah, but that's what I have to say about Mario Strikers. I enjoy it, but I don't know exactly what the longevity of it is.
Before we go into the news of the week, of which there's plenty, we do have a couple features up on the website in addition to the big news features. One of which is I finally wrote up my thoughts on Elex 2. I won't go into too much detail here because I've spoken about it in the past. So the review's up on the site, and my main takeaway is that I thought Elex 1 was an average game with a lot of potential, and I thought a potential sequel to it could have really knocked it out of the park. And I don't think it was even as good as the first game in general. It has some of the same strengths, but I think there's really no reason to play Elex 2 if you haven't played Elex 1. And then if you played Elex 1 and you aren't really invested in the world or characters or anything about it, then there's really not a whole lot of reason to play Elex 2. So I got my more fuller thoughts up on the site. Go ahead and give that a read if you're inclined. Another feature that went up on the site this week is that James was able to give some sort of impressions on the upcoming Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. James obviously has a lot of hours and times and hands-on time with the whole series and with Monster Hunter Rise in general, both for the Switch and PC versions. James, maybe I'll just let you speak very briefly about your impressions piece. I do know that, and you're very clear about this, that it was a hands-off impressions piece, which always kind of becomes difficult to write. But just go ahead and give us like what your time of putting this together was like.
Yeah, so usually if we're going to be doing a preview, and just to be clear, this is not a preview. I very specifically used impressions because I did not actually play it myself. Normally, I would not write up impressions about something that I haven't played. This is a very specific circumstance, though, in the sense that I have put literally thousands of hours into the series. I've put hundreds of hours into Rise. It's one of those very, very few instances where just seeing gameplay and having the context of what I've played previously in the same game, it's like, okay, I feel like I can feel comfortable enough writing about what I've seen and like have some takeaways. This is very much the exception. Just want to make that clear. So they gave us access to 30 to 40 minutes of footage between two hunts. Josh actually watched a bit of it with me the other day in the staff chat. So if you want to pipe in about what you saw, feel free to. Basically just a bunch of stuff that's being added to Sunbreak, showcased the new golden ruby wirebug stuff very quickly. They showcased some of the new monsters. One of the things I mentioned in the post is that I expected Lunagaron to be more like a Dogoron or Zinogre, but then when it gets enraged, it's like, oh, this is more like Gossarag. This is really weird, but in a cool way, and stuff like that. So I'm very excited to see more. But if you want to hear what see what I have to say about what we were shown, at least the impressions piece is up on the site, and yeah.
Yeah, I like the new zone that they showed in the videos. It seems pretty gonna be a fun time to explore. That like a little bit more hands-on previews came out on the Japanese side. For the Sunbreak.
Yeah, apparently in Japan and in Europe there was actually like hands-on events. It was very specifically like North America that was hands-off only, which is understandable. It is unfortunate because it would have been nice to actually feel a little bit more confident in what I'm writing, just because,
Yeah.
like, again, I am confident enough in what I have to say.
Yeah,
here,
for sure. Yeah,
but it's
just like a logistic. We understand the logistical nightmare that happens behind the scenes for some of these companies, and
yeah,
we get it's not a big deal. Like this is coming out very soon at the end of the month. Like this is not something that's super far off.
yeah.
Yeah,
And not to mention, it's like it's not like what I saw is like completely obviously cherry picked or anything. 'Cause it's like it's not a new game; it's an expansion for a game I have already put hundreds of hours into. So
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. But people who like people like who played Monster Hunter know what to expect from expansions, and Sunbreak is very much along those lines, where like see more new locales, new monsters, and very like seeing like how old monsters translated like the newer games. So like there was a bit of footage where you saw Sergios, and that was looked like a really really like fun hunt in Sunbreak. Way more like a lot more aggressive than you might be expecting from past games. And it looks like it's going to be a blast. Like I'm really interested to see like some of the other things that Capcom has said about the game. Like they've mentioned like you haven't seen all the new attacks yet. They've shared like a little bit in the videos, but those aren't the entire picture. We're not. There are some like a few balance changes like here and there, like that was sort of observed and noticed by like people who saw hands-on footage. And it's like it's gonna be really really interesting to see like how if the dynamics of like the certain weapon dichotomy in Rise changes, because right now there are definitely like key winners, like Longsword, for example, that still like look like they were bumped down a little bit, but still look very powerful, and we're all still crossing our fingers that Lance will somehow pull off a miracle at this point and get where it needs to be.
So we have both the Elex review and the Sunbreak impressions up on the site. And if you were to go to the site right now, there is a lot of features about a lot of news that came out of the last week's Thursday's PlayStation State of Play about Final Fantasy XVI. We kind of knew this was coming because there was updates on the social about the trailer having been finalized and how they were just about to present it. It's the right time frame for it. So this was kind of not really a surprise. And we got the new trailer for Final Fantasy XVI. We got some details on the staff behind it. We even got some people to be able to freelance some articles for the site that really dug into the combat stylings that we saw in the trailer, try to kind of speculate what we might be able to see in the game. There's been some speculation about whether the game even has a party. More on that later. So let's just start off with the basics. This new Final Fantasy XVI trailer introduced some new characters, kind of went more in detail about the premise of the game, a lot of focus on the the summons of the game, the icons, and how they interface with the story and the different factions, the different players that play. We haven't heard from Adam in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and like loop him in. Just Adam, just to kind of give us just a starting point to launch off on our discussion here of what we saw for Final Fantasy 16. I guess before I do that, it is launching summer 2023 for PlayStation 5, with no other details about any other releases at this moment. So, Adam, what are your just off-the-cuff impressions about what you saw from the Final Fantasy 16 trailer we saw last week?
I did not watch the trailer.
Rip.
Nice.
That's
really good.
One job.
That's really good,
I
actually.
definitely watched
like
the trailer, but my impression of the game is, how do I say it? I have a really weird take of it. It reminds me of those Ultraman games that you play in the Super Nintendo, where you're having like a dual one-on-one with a giant monster, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I get what you're saying. I'll be honest, the gameplay footage I think was more interesting than the first trailer. I don't know what, like, I'm sure part of it's like the way it was edited. It just doesn't like stand out to me as much as the first one, where it was like way more of a focus on the like actual combat. Now, like most of what we're seeing is these little like cutaways where it's like, okay, how are these like engagements between the two summons happen? Is it just like thing? Is it?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from because a lot of like the cut-ins for like battle footage in this trailer was like already in the middle of combat, like during like a move, like while in the first trailer like there was like more of like a ramp of like, okay, this is like how the start of like encounters are initiated and like in the general flow of combat, like when like these special moves aren't being pulled off like at every second. Trailer had, so like it was very, the trailer itself is like interesting, but you have to like kind of get through like kind of the messiness of it all, because like it's a lot of like it's basically visuals and UI puking at you at like every corner and every time like you see battle footage. Like it's like an interesting play that catches the eye, but at the same time, just like this is so much info to like kind of cram into just a few seconds without really any breathing room.
Like, my impression is that it's kind of like a Lightning's Returns merged with a fighting game and maybe like an Ultraman game back from the 90s or something. throw those three in as one. I mean, you get the Final Fantasy XIV limit bar on the top, and then you have different kits based on probably the icons you're using. Maybe that's kind of like what I'm getting. And the whole game is like a duel. It's just the life bar just shows you that it's like a one-on-one fighting each other, right?
Yeah, like the very first like scene like in the trailer of like the battle system, like it really does look like two opposing like fighting game bars like facing off against each other, and then like you have like these dynamic cut camera angles like in the middle of the fight of like, I assume that it'll initiate like during certain thresholds, like say like even in Stranger of Paradise, when you reach like those boss thresholds, it'll do like a certain like dynamic camera cut of like of a next phase being entered. It had that sort of effect on it, but it's so far off that it's like I don't know if I care at the like too much at this point of like what the trailer did and didn't do well, because it's just like, to me it's like it's still in development, that what we're seeing probably isn't like final footage. This is like there's all if anything, we're seeing a glimpse of like the concepts at play of like how this game will generally look when we're playing it. And what we have right now is like, man, that is a lot of like things on the screen. And like we're no strangers to this. Like Xenoblade infamously is the same way of like there's just like a lot of fucking shit on the screen for you to manage. So like this one has like your action abilities at like the bottom right corner, your consumables at like the bottom left. You have your HP and like your limit break and your icon things on the on like the top left, and then you have like these kind of like DMC-esque like things at like when you're doing a combo. It's like kind of like your stylish, super sick stylish, except this is like, oh, you use an ability, you use a chain to whatever, and like as you're beating up foes, and it's just like, yeah, I guess, sure, like this is an action RPG for sure. It is it with everything that an action RPG entails. It is interesting to see in motion. It is very fast paced. It is also messy because it is an action RPG.
Can you guys get any latch on? So a good chunk of this trailer is showing these one-on-one clashes between the icons, and it suggests like with the way the UI is framed, how it shows like this almost cinematic type attack that looks like a cutscene, but then there's like damage floaters as if it's gameplay. But I'm like, how do you control this? Like, how does the player interface with this part of the game? With the combat that shows Clive, it's a little bit more like you can get a latch on it. But with the summons, I'm just like, okay, I see, Phoenix fighting Ifrit and doing like an attack and getting but how do you actually like engage with this? It's a bit like it makes for a great trailer. But I don't know. I'm thinking like, how do you play this part? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know exactly if these like there's a very very real chance that maybe these like one-on-one encounters of the icons are maybe like turn-based, where like, and when you use like an ability from the icon, it'll go into like super crazy cutscene of them using that move and then the icon reacting. Like, but it's hard to tell, like, because they refuse to show exactly how you control these icon versus icon encounters. For all we know, we don't know if it's actually action or turn based during those parts of the game. While with Clive, it's very very obvious that like it is single player. Clive seems to be the only party member. We don't know if there's going to be a party system. It's
It
very
does
much
say
like there wasn't
in the
but,
combat like that where it shows. This is maybe me like pulling at strings. First of all, I don't really care if there's other playable party members or not. But in the combat, it has in the UI, like in the upper left, where it shows like his health and whatever the yellow meters are. It says like Clive. Well, why would it specify who you're controlling if there's not other like maybe you only control one at a time in different parts of the game? But like, it's clearly called out that you're playing as Clive here. So why would it do that if he was the only controllable party member? And
yeah, maybe you have the right like you're right like on the right wavelength where like maybe you only control one character at a time, but like it'll switch perspectives maybe of like okay, you control Clive this part and then you control whoever at this part. Maybe it'll do that for all we know. But it doesn't look like, but we don't know exactly because this is not coming out till next summer. But it's looking like you're only be controlling one person at a time and not fighting with like other people that you could control. But we don't know for sure.
So we had before this trailer 3 main characters that we were introduced to, along with like speculation on some of the others. Clive, the younger brother, Joshua, who is the dominant of Phoenix, and Jill. Jill has a very small part in this trailer, but doesn't seem to get a lot of focus. We do get a big introduction to Hugo, who is revealed as the dominant of Titan, and a name to a previously shown character, Bendicta, who is a dominant of Garuda. So we have actually up another article on the site, basically kind of collating and synthesizing all the information that we have for these characters. What sides are on, what roles they play. Bendicta is like a spy and a tactician. Hugo is I thought this was kind of interesting. Hugo is listed as like an economic advisor, but he was like also a soldier who kind of rose through the ranks as he became revealed as the dominant of Titan. So just kind of getting some more the cast fleshed out. I don't know if we got a name for him, but we saw like the leader of the empire kind of showing his almost like carelessness towards like the losses in the war being shown, and how he thinks that including human lives, it can all be rebuilt or regained, and he's not basically afraid of the conflict that's being shown. And then of course there's the trailer kind of ends basically with kind of a cast runoff of all the different summons have been shown so far. You've got Shiva, you've got Odin, you've got Bahamut, you've got of course the couple that I mentioned, like Titan and Garuda. Ifrit obviously is there's a lot of speculation about Ifrit's role. We kind of know that an encounter with Ifrit kind of somehow kicks off the story in the pre-time skip era and has some sort of clash with Phoenix that affects Clive and Joshua and their and kind of like their standing in the world, but we don't know exactly the details. I guess it's highly speculated that Clive is.
When you mentioned Ifrit, like I really like the moment in the trailer where it's like going down all the icons being shown in like the orchestra going Ifrit when Ifrit is shown. Like I thought, I was like, okay, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I liked how the music kind of aligned with that part of the trailer, kind of just going through like the icon cast.
But we saw like a good glimpse of like kind of the more mature storytelling, and like that the FF16 team is like going for, like it looks to be more of a classic Final Fantasy in terms of like a world, like kind of like FF12 for example, sort of along those lines. But then like you see like scenes like, oh man, maybe Clive will like get on some action, like Like there's like this moment in the trailer where like you saw like Clive and like another lady's like bare naked backs. It's like, all right, did they
It's
sitting on the
blonde,
side of a
okay?
bed.
She's sleeping with the Garuda dominant. Okay.
was that the Garuda dominant? All right. Well,
I mean, Jill is not blonde, is she?
I mean, I don't know. It could be another blonde in the game. I have no idea.
Well, they
Twin
haven't
sister.
they have not spoiled the Shiva dominant, so
Yeah, Shiva,
That's-
Odin, Bahamut, those dominants we don't know. Ifrit, people speculate could become Clive or is Clive. It's not certain. So yeah, that's good. Go ahead,
my
John.
speculation is there's two icons of fire in their kingdom from what the trailer shows me, and that's both Joshua and Clyde, and they probably end up killing each other or something. That's probably what I'm getting from the trailers.
We also got to remember that the premise, as was shown in the original announcement, is that Clive was expected to be the dominant of the Phoenix, but it passed him and went to Joshua instead. Why is that? It seems to be kind of central to the premise of the game. So yeah, kind of shaping up, and it's in the damn logo of the game between Phoenix and Ifrit. So clearly going to be kind of something that's kind of kicks off there's obviously the warring conflict, which is kind of like the larger scale one, but then mirrored by the personal conflict or the more individual one between Clive and Joshua, even though it might be an unwanted one. And speaking about what kind of latch on to what Josh said about just how like what other Final Fantasy games this game is kind of evocative of, that kind of leads right into the conversation about the key development staff behind Final Fantasy XVI. So a lot of these names we knew, especially that the producer is Yoshi P, Naoki Yoshida. We talked about previously how we had a really good feature up on the site about the director of the game, Hiroshi Takai. We also learned a little bit more details about who is helming some of the other aspects of the project, such as Kazutoyo Mahiro is the creative director who has worked on games like Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy Tactics. So maybe you might see that infects kind of what you see here in the story in the trailer. A localization director is Koji Fox, also of like Final Fantasy XIV fame. Art director Hiroshi Minagawa, who also worked on Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy XII. So you can kind of see like, yeah, I can see that. I can see kind of like where these vibes are coming from. And then here's kind of the big one, the combat director, Ryoto Suzuki, who originally came over from Capcom in 2019 to be the combat director of what eventually became known as Final Fantasy XVI. And Suzuki has worked on both Devil May Cry and Dragon's Dogma. He was even a programmer on Monster Hunter. So we have a very kind of an outside talent who is helming the combat directing of a Final Fantasy game, which might be why that part is the part that's so kind of unique and bespoke to this game that doesn't seem like it borrows from any other system in the series. What else do we have here? The composer we knew was Masayoshi Soken, and a lot of people kind of called that out from the first trailer because it had kind of his motifs all over it. This staff is loaded, just to put it bluntly, and it's not only is it loaded, but it's kind of like a collection of talent that hasn't worked on a mainline Final Fantasy game in other than a mainline non-MMO Final Fantasy game in a while. So it's really kind of an exciting thing to look at and see like exactly how this will feel as a single player experience.
Yeah, I mean it's it's still far away, but at least we have a release window now for it, and hoping the best. It's if nothing else, it looks interesting, and I really hope that it is as responsive as it looks in the gameplay. And, I have faith in that. I really enjoyed Devil May Cry 5. I really enjoyed Dragon's Dogma. So having the combat director of those games work on this game, it fills me with a lot of hope that at least like this will be a very enjoyable game to play, because for like there are many Final Fantasies to me that like I really enjoyed its characters and the story it was telling, but for some of them it's like, well, that's cool, but like the way they played just like didn't really line up with what I wanted. Like FF15 comes to mind to a certain point where like I really grew to like the characters of that game. The story was very hit and miss at points, but like actually controlling the game, like because I only played the launch version of that game. I never played it with like all the updates it's on its lifespan. I was like, yeah, the gameplay's okay. It's like it's almost there for me, but it's not quite there.
I don't know. Like the thing that I can't stand about FF15 is the weapons. They feel like I'm like using paperweight or something.
Yeah,
the way that
yeah.
Noctis like slices weapon feels like you're like slapping a piece of paper on them.
And meanwhile, in this trailer, you can feel that like weapons are very weighty. Like there's like a ground slam move that Clive uses at some point in the trailer. Like, yeah, that looks really awesome to use. So it's pretty exciting to see like how this is shaping up, and If nothing else, like on first view, I was like, it definitely wowed me when I first saw it, and I was like, and obviously as you're breaking it down through, more replays of the trailer, it's like, okay, it was definitely messy at points, but if nothing else, it inspires curiosity, and like it inspires sort of like it gives you a lot enough to chew on and think about as we wait for it.
I do think the game looks a lot cleaner. I remember when the first trailer came out, people were like, "Is this next gen?" It didn't quite have that level of polish to it. Where this game, this trailer, I think I think it was Yoshida who was on record saying that the next time he showed it, he wanted to wow people. He didn't want it to be like rough around the edges. And obviously, a good way to do that is just to show off their, flex their muscles with all of these like summon animations. So I think they kind of hit their mark there. And I kind of agree.
I'm surprised that like there's so much CGI scenes in this game. Like I really wonder like what the total like file size for this game is at the end of the day. Because like, man, if like a lot of these story scenes are like full CGI, it's to be like, I assume going to be in 4K. What file size are we looking at for this game?
Well, I mean,
there's been multiple languages.
4K Blu-rays can go up to 100 gigabytes. So
yeah, it's gonna be like 4K, multiple languages. Who knows how long this RPG is, and like also, and then PS5's storage space not being ideal for already. So like, all right.
Also, here's something terrifying. FF7R on PS4 had 2 discs.
Did it? Oh yeah, it did, didn't it? Oh yeah.
Had like an install disc.
Yeah, I got it digitally, so I don't know about that. It was like an install in the game disc, was it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's summer 2023, PlayStation 5. No other details at all about other platforms at the moment. Obviously, something we're really looking forward to and excited about. The last feature we have up on the site is the one that I kind of briefly mentioned, how people have been speculating and combing through the trailer frame by frame and using their knowledge of Devil May Cry and other Capcom action titles to try to speculate exactly how this game will play like. If that is something that is of interest to you, we have an article up on the site called Final Fantasy XVI Battle System Analysis, Combat Mechanics Revealed by the Trailer. So if you're the type of person to click through the trailer frame by frame and try to piece out exactly how it'll play, we have an article up that kind of really goes in depth about all the things that could possibly come into play as you go through Final Fantasy XVI. And Alex kind of put some of this together with a few guesses and speculation from the initial trailer, but obviously we got more footage from the new one. So we have an in-depth article looking at that. And then we also had one other Square Enix property get a announcement and a new trailer. And maybe Adam can talk about this one more. Oh, I thought that was so silly. But okay, Adam.
Maybe this trailer.
Yeah, maybe this is more up your alley. So we talked about how we had a SaGa series live stream last week that we were looking forward to. And I know Adam, Josh, and Chow have speculated what might come from that, maybe Unlimited Saga, maybe some other things. What we ended up getting was an announcement of Romancing SaGa Minstrel Song Remastered. We got a trailer for it. We got an announcement that this is coming out this winter, no specific date, but winter 2022 for PC, PS4, Xbox. Sorry, not Xbox. PC, PS4, Switch, and mobile, not Xbox. So Adam, the Minstrel Song Sailor, this is a game that I believe that you think pretty highly of. I don't know if you're in a huge rush to replay it or if if a remaster is a good enough reason for you to do it. I guess, what are your thoughts on the remaster? What are your thoughts on Minstrel Song in general? And if people are either new to the SaGa series or have been recently introduced, should they be looking forward to Minstrel Song Remastered?
Also worth mentioning before that, it's coming. It has a native PlayStation 5 release coming as well, alongside PlayStation 4, Switch, Steam, and mobile.
Yeah, so when we're talking about SaGa series, a lot of games in the series have been remastered recently, like Romancing SaGa 2, Romancing SaGa 3, the SaGa Frontier remaster released last year, which won our best remaster of the year kind of category in our year-end awards. There's also the Game Boy games. The original SaGa games are now on Switch and PC and mobile. Actually, I'm pretty sure like all of these games are also on mobile. So the fact that this new announcement is also on mobile is just kind of like par for the course for this series, which is sort of interesting. But so Romancing SaGa Minstrel Song is what the game is originally a PlayStation 2 game, and it's a remake of the original Romancing SaGa, which is on Super Famicom. So, to be clear, the original Romancing SaGa on Super Famicom was never officially translated into English. Actually, none of the Romancing SaGa Super Famicom games were. While 2 and 3 got remasters, the thing with Romancing SaGa is it got this remake on PlayStation 2 back in 2005. It was called Minstrel Song in Japan. I don't think it actually had a subtitle in the West, but people just called it Minstrel Song to differentiate it, right? And so that is the game that's actually being remastered here. So in short, this is a remaster of a remake. Now, Minstrel Song is just like Minstrel Song is great. It's a weird game. It's kind of ugly, but it's cool as hell. And the Romancing SaGa games, generally, broadly, how they work is that, at least 1 and 3, is that you are given several different characters you can choose from at the beginning. There's 8 in total. And especially in Romancing SaGa Minstrel Song, depending on which character you choose, you kind of have like a different starting point on the world, and like your storyline that you're following is a little bit different. And then it's kind of, I've heard one person describe Romancing SaGa as like a JRPG Skyrim, which is maybe kind of a not necessarily 100% accurate way to put it, but the idea is right in that it's sort of an open world, open-ended, non-linear game that once you're kind of get past the opening parts of the game, you can go in any direction. You can recruit a number of different characters from a wide pool of characters. There's a lot of different quests you can stumble across, and each with unique dungeons or boss fights or what have you. And there's a lot of flexibility in how you build your characters and your party.
For people who got into the SaGa series with Scarlet Grace, like this won't be like totally foreign to you. Like,
Scarlet Grace is similar. So unlike Scarlet Grace, this does actually have like towns and dungeons that you can explore. Whereas, Scarlet Grace is kind of like, abstracts that using a world map, but it's a similar in design. So this is not like, if you're not familiar with SaGa, this isn't like a story-driven JRPG as you would typically think of that. It's more open-ended RPG with like a JRPG kind of combat with all the SaGa stylings that we all know and love, or at least I know and love. Now, when we knew that I've spoken with Kawazu 2 times now, and he's mentioned, that they're interested in remastering a lot of the games in the series. The ones that haven't been remastered yet were SaGa Frontier 2, which originally released on the original PlayStation, a limited SaGa on PlayStation 2, which I've never played, and this Romancing SaGa game. So we weren't sure if they were going to remaster like the original Romancing SaGa or this remake Minstrel Song. I know somebody was actually hoping they kind of like merge the two together. Like, what if you have like Minstrel Song sort of styles with the original like HT2D or something? But that's not the case. It looks like to be a remaster of the PS2 game, and they have mentioned that there's going to be some like quality of life adjustments and new elements. I think that's the way they put it, new elements, but they haven't detailed at all what those are. So I believe they said on the live stream that it won't be as significant as SaGa Frontier,
which
that remaster had a bunch of
stuff.
Yeah, that remaster had a bunch of cut content that was known about the original release, kind of added back in. Minstrel Song didn't really, as far as I know, have like a significant amount of cut content to just kind of reshape back into the game.
Yeah.
But they,
if anything, like remake was like Minstrel Song was that remake of like try to like incorporate like the original ideas and streamline the ideas of the original already. So like there's really no need at that point. Yeah.
But it sounds like they're going to have a few new things. Now, one thing about Minstrel Song that I totally understand the design philosophy of this, but I understand also why this could be aggravating to some people, is that like a lot of SaGa games, you have a battle rank, and that generally speaking, the stronger you get, the stronger like the world gets around you, and so everything sort of scales to your like ability and your stats and whatnot. And that also affects what quests are available. And on one hand, like, if this is a tough quest, you don't want it to be available at the very beginning of the game because then you might have like absolutely no shot of like defeating the boss or whatever. But also on the flip side, the game will actually like lock out quests from you if you get too strong. Like quite literally, if you reach like battle rank 20, there might be a few quests that are like, nope, you can't do this quest anymore. It just doesn't, it's not there. Like you can't do it. And like at a face value, it's like, wait, why do that? But I believe the idea is there's a sort of a lot of the Saga games are kind of like Kawazu's take on like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And like when you're doing a D&D campaign, you're not going to like encounter every single possible scenario that you could possibly run into in a single campaign, like depending on which direction you go or what you do. So that's kind of the idea here, is that like when you're exploring this world and running into quests, you're not really supposed to like do all of them. Does that make sense? It's supposed to kind of be
we
a little
kind of
bit.
have this. We kind of have this predilection to like some of us who like really love RPGs will be exhaustive about it.
Right. That's it feels like to me the idea with this here was that like you weren't supposed to like, you're supposed to explore the world, run into quests, you're going to run into a handful of them, do a handful of them, and then like depending on where you go and what you do, because you have a lot of freedom there, you're going to run into a different set of quests or locations or areas. There's even a location in the game, I forget what it's called, but I remember where it is. It's like in the northwest part of the map. That's very hard to get to unless you know what you're doing, and it's kind of like a well-kept secret in the game, like how you actually unlock it. But that's kind of the idea, is that you're not supposed to exhaust the map. It's supposed to just like a playground almost, like explore and find things, and what you find is just going to be what you find and whatnot. So, but I'm wondering if in the remaster, if they might tweak how the battle rank works, or if how the quest navigation works in terms of like where you can find them, how when they get locked off or whatnot, things like that. Like Romancing SaGa 3 was actually like that, where nothing in Romancing SaGa 3 was missable. You could do any quest if you found it, and we wouldn't get locked away. So I'm wondering if they might tweak small things like that. There's also like a class system in the game. There's some crafting you can do in the game that maybe they might tweak a bit here and there. But otherwise, if you like Saga games, you'll like Minstrel Song. It's similar to The Last Remnant, which is a Saga game in all but name, in terms of its like overworld, like kind of design and structure and freedom to go where you want. I'm actually thinking of maybe writing up something, just kind of like just a preview of, not necessarily a remaster, but like, hey, here's what Minstrel Song is about, because it's pretty different than what you might assume.
It's generally a decent like gateway into the Saga series too. Like it doesn't pull punches about like what Saga is. It's like this is what the Saga series is. You either like it or not, but it's not. But you're not like totally aimless in it. But you have to accept it. Like you play it your own way. Don't like be crazy about like getting to everything. So this Romancing SaGa 3 and like Saga Frontier, I'd say. I guess Scarlet Grace also are like all decent ways to get into it, and now all remastered.
It's also the sort of game where like there's not random battles. There's like icons on the map that you run into. So I'm wondering if like sort of like Saga Frontier, like maybe they'll make it where you can avoid battles or run away from battle. I'm trying to remember. In Saga Frontier, you couldn't run away at all in the original version.
Yeah.
In this game, I think you can run away, but I'm trying to remember. There's some like penalty or cost of doing it.
That definitely was like you were punished for it. But I
don't remember if it was like your HP is like lowered or money or something. But I'm wondering if they tweak things like that also, where you don't have to battle as much. But it's a really cool game. I might write something up on it. I'm interested to see if they make any tweaks or adjustments to it at all. And
it was also really funny for Adam and I to see like a new generation being exposed to like the character models.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like it has a very distinct look to it.
It's sort of similar to Scarlet Grace. Like Scarlet Grace kind of has like stylized models in that they're not like perfect human proportions of their heads and their arms and whatnot, but it's not quite as chibi as this game looks. I mean, even Saga Frontier, like there are obviously sprites there, but there's not like proportioned like you would expect for humans. But that's just sort of the style they go with. Like I said, I do admittedly think it's not like my preferred look for the game, but I almost don't care, like because the rest of the game is so cool. The music is great. Also, it's Kenji Ito.
I love his.
It might be one of my favorite Kenji Ito like soundtracks. It's really good.
I was gonna say no one misses my Donkey Kong mode.
Kenji Ito just doesn't miss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but other than that, the rest of the sagas, like that was the main highlight of the Saga series stream. Like they talked about obviously Reuniverse and all that stuff there. like doing a Minstrel Song collab in it. And then they have like the Imperial Saga Eclipse or whatever. But there's nothing else really like said or teased or anything. It was like,
I
hey,
think
here's the way to do
Kawazu
this.
at the end, what all he said was kind of like in a single sentence was, there are more games to remaster.
Yep.
Sort of hinting like, okay, that's Saga Frontier and Unlimited Saga, basically. And we are still working on a new game, which he had previously announced.
Yeah.
So
Probably won't see those till next year. So we get
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 16 before the
I mean,
Saga
sure.
Frontier 2.
For sure. I mean, this game is probably going to come out like December or January or whatever. Sounds like. So they said winter, I believe, is the wording they used.
If
Right.
anything else, like Saga fans are probably like the most stable fucking fan base. That's sort of like that. Like what they're waiting for is almost guaranteed. Like for old games, you just have to wait. Kawazu, you believe in Kawazu at this point. He's getting it done.
Yeah, it's been very funny this week seeing, like, at least before the 16 trailer came out, seeing everyone like in my circle saying, "Man, Saga fans, they're just constantly eating. They don't have to stress about anything."
Yep.
Oh, they also. So this is also funny. Like, Square Enix has official accounts for all their brands. There's like a Mana account, and there's a Star Ocean account, and so on and so forth. They finally opened an English language Saga account.
Which
There was-
just implies that it's like,
That there's more coming.
God bless the Saga series.
I do think it's funny that like the Japanese Saga account is still titled like Romancing SaGa 2 PR back from like the remaster. That was like 2015 or something. So, 7 years ago. And that's now the official Saga account for Japan. It's just the Romancing SaGa 2 PR is still the one that they use.
Kawazu
We have
hasn't
an
gotten around to
English
updating the name. Like, just give him some time. He's a busy man.
Well, they don't care. They're too busy. Like, we'd rather just fucking work on the remaster and make the game. We don't care about like the socials. Someone else can handle that. It's like it feels like it's like the most chill studio. That's
That stream actually had quite a few viewers. Like,
yeah,
I think when I was watching it, it got up to like 30,000, which for a Saga stream that was at like in the West, like at 4 a.m. or something like that.
And you know what? I feel like most of those like viewers are probably like the
mobile
universe.
They're probably staying in, hoping for the freebie announcement.
Exactly, and then that's why they keep releasing these remasters on mobile, because like there's not really for the Western audience. Like, sure, they're great, but I think it's mainly for the Japanese mobile audience that like experience Saga through their mobile devices. So they're all at one spot. Like, I'm done with my Readiverse dailies for the day. I want to play some fucking Scarlet Grace or Romancing SaGa 3. Just live Saga on their phone vicariously.
And I want to say that Saga Frontier Remastered actually sold really well on Steam. Like, it was like one of the top sellers the week it came out.
It sold more than Saga Scarlet Grace.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
That's funny. How well do the Saga games work on Steam Deck? Do you know?
Scarlet Grace works about as well as you'd expect.
Okay.
The only issue it could have had was the opening movie, but the PC version doesn't play it by default anyways. So
Okay.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
The PC version of the Scarlet Grace opening movie, you just have to find it in the files and play it. It doesn't actually.
They just dump the
game.
video file in there.
And they never fixed it. They're like, it's fine.
yeah.
Thank you, Saga devs.
Before we move on from Square Enix, there is one other footnote here, and that is that longtime Final Fantasy producer and the Kingdom Hearts, like, essentially founder, Shinji Hashimoto, is retiring from the company. I think we're all kind of aware, or at least somewhat aware, of the story of a Disney exec and a Square Enix exec meeting in an elevator when they shared an office building, and that's how Kingdom Hearts was born. Well, that Square Enix exec was Shinji Hashimoto, and he's also been just a public face of the company for a while. He's the originator of like the "Please Be Excited" meme. Remember before Final Fantasy VII remake was announced, they announced it for PS4, but it was just a port of the original game. Yeah.
So good.
Feels like an eon ago.
Yeah, I think that was like 2013 or something like that.
As much as people like meme or even be rudely mean-spirited towards Hashimoto, I think he was like overall like a net positive for Square Enix. Like, he was a very outspoken, accessible dude. Like, when you talk to him, like, he's very like direct and upfront about like his answers to stuff.
I think the only thing that he did wrong was the Final Fantasy VII announcement, not the remake.
Dude, I like that. I like that he enjoyed it. Like he's like he knows what people wanted, and like I'm sure it's still very early in development, but he's like I'm just gonna fuck with people, you know. And I think he had a pretty good career over there at Square Enix. I respect the dude.
Yeah, it was. I think I can still get over that they misread the room.
Yeah, but
I think he had a good time with it, like Josh implies.
Mhm. Yeah, and he also had put up a video on on the Twitter socials, just talking about if you see me anywhere, say hi to me. Don't be shy, I'll be happy take a picture with you. He just seems like a very easy to talk to person. When you're not getting roadblocked by PR people, be like, hey, don't fucking get near this dude. It's just he seems like he genuinely likes to interact with the fans of the games that he's been involved with.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just to mention he's retired because he's at retirement age, and when you reach a certain age in Japan, it is mandatory that you enter retirement. That is the law there.
I actually didn't know that.
Yes.
Well, he regardless of whether it's a law or not, he has earned it. He has been working for the company for how many years?
Oh God, I don't know if he actually put a year count on it. I forgot.
No,
it's a long time.
He was a producer for Final Fantasy VIII, so at least that long. So he's been there a good
Yeah.
while. But yeah, he's earned your retirement, Shinji Hashimoto. Now, the lead that I ended up shortcutting is that we got another set of new information about the upcoming Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet for this year. We kind of got a little bit of heads up ahead of time that we were going to expect a new trailer in early June, and we got that alongside an announcement of the release date. I'll just say that off first. Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet will release on November 18th, which is the sort of window that you could just kind of predict. It was either going to be that or the week after. It's always in that time period in November.
I want to say that there's been at least 4 or 5 Pokemon games that have specifically come out on November 18th.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that when you we obviously on our social page on our Twitter channel do some anniversary posts pretty frequently, and usually we just kind of can batch together a bunch of Pokemon ones together. So I won't be surprised if that's true for Scarlet and Violet. More interesting than the release date are some of the information from this trailer. So some of the stuff is kind of interesting and novel to some extent. For instance, this is the first paired set of games where whichever Pokemon professor you get will be dependent on the version that you have. Playing Pokemon Violet, you'll get Professor Turo. If you're playing Pokemon Scarlet, you'll get Professor Sada. They had some new information about the legendary Pokemon, just because they're the mascots in the box art. But more interestingly, we learned that this trailer in this game that up to 4 players can play together online simultaneously, and there's a lot of just in the footage itself. It seems like there's a lot of kind of inspiration taken from the January release this year of Pokemon Legends Arceus. And alongside that, we got some new Pokemon introduced as well. It seems like a favorite has been LeChonk, which is a kind of a normal type little pig Pokemon that is shown in the trailer and is very, very cute and very has
when
a very
I first
fun
saw
name.
this, I couldn't watch this trailer right away, but I was just looking at Twitter and I saw someone call the pig LeChonk, and at first I thought that was just his pet nickname for the pig. And no, that's the official name of the Pokemon. Okay, it better evolve into LeChungus.
But it's a pun for pig in German?
Yeah,
I think
Spanish probably.
Spanish. Oh yeah, because it's a Spanish themed expansion.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's fun. The thing is that
fantastic name.
So I think that the headline that Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet will have co-op, I think is obviously a very exciting one. But then I think how is that gonna work on a turn-based game? Or just if you're near an ally, you're gonna have double battles as you go through the game. I think it's really gonna be exciting to see this is kind of the sort of announcement where the announcement of co-op itself is fun, but I kind of also just need some details to be how is that gonna work? Because they kind of are pretty light on the ground here, unless it kind of came through in a press release that dropped later that I didn't poke through. A lot of the specific...
they just dropped you saw some of it in the trailer hey, people up to 4 players can play together or they can go their separate ways. So in the trailer you saw 4 different players in different regions of the map, and they didn't really specify exactly how the mechanics would work together. All that people know is hey, we can play alongside one another. But it's really interesting to see how this will get done. Like it feels like I don't know. I have no idea how they're going to do it because they're in the announcement of Scarlet and Violet, they're saying like this will be like the first like true open world Pokemon game. And so but how that actually will manifest is to anyone's guess. But it's a lot of like these words make you feel good. It's like, oh man, that sounds really promising. But you don't know if that'll actually be promising. But Game Freak is really good at making things sound promising.
I am going to say right now, and I don't think this is a bit of a hot take. Now, obviously, a lot of people like Sword and Shield, or at least the base game. I feel like a lot of people felt like me, where it was like, it's a fine game, but I was disappointed with it until the DLC came out. I would be shocked if I do not enjoy Scarlet and Violet more than base game Sword and Shield, just based off what they've shown.
Didn't one of the Sword and Shield expansions add like a multiplayer to it? Like you can like explore like a dungeon through
not
multiplayer?
Well, kind of. So max raids were already a thing in a base game, but max raid adventures is something where you can go to a specific part of the Crown Tundra, and it's like one of those battle frontier facilities almost with the way it works. You start off with preset Pokemon and you do it in a group, and you choose pathways for where you want to go to get to the end, and every time you battle a Pokemon on the way to the end, you have a chance to just like swap yours out for the Pokemon you just captured, and then you have a legendary at the very end that you can battle. If you successfully beat it, you can capture it, and I believe there's also a higher chance of getting a shiny legendary that way.
Do you actually interact or battle alongside other people at all?
Yes, okay. You do. You do it with other people, and you can see what they're saying. Obviously, it's a Nintendo game, so the communication is very poor. I feel like a lot of people. I hope that the multiplayer in Scarlet and Violet is way better than Sword and Shield, because the one worst thing about Sword and Shield, Wycom. Wycom is terrible. I can't believe they thought it was a good idea.
What's a Wycom?
Okay. You cannot explicitly say, I want to trade with this person. Instead, you can set a password and be like, I want to trade, and it's going to be private session. So if somebody has the same passcode, which is a 4-digit passcode, then they might be able to see my trade request or my battle request on Wycom if it refreshes at the right time for them to see it. And there was no way to manually refresh it unless you explicitly went offline and back online again, because the cooldown for refreshing was like every 5 minutes. So if you wanted to do it quicker than that, you had to go offline, online, on and off again.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It shocks me that more people don't talk about how bafflingly stupid
that sounds awful
system in Sword and Shield is. Like, I remember back when I reviewed it back in like 2019, people like responded to my review like on like Reset Era and Reddit saying, yeah, I can't believe more people aren't talking about how terrible Wycom is, because as a system it's like just absolutely terrible. But anyway,
hopefully it's more seamless here now that you're occupying the same space as like with another person. Just hopefully trading is more seamless and on the fly and makes more sense. With the new structure changes they're doing here. But it looks cool, and I really wonder like if it'll support like LAN support, if there's like multiple switches near each other, so you can just like don't have to rely on an internet connection. That'd be really cool too. But yeah, that's really all they released announced outside of like LeChonk and was Smoliv and Palmy. They also I think they also announced was Nimona a rival character or just or person
it sounds like yes. As far as we know, she's taken the role of the rival, even though very much in the friendly nature of it. Pawnee seems like it's the Pikachu clone of this generation. It actually is electric type. It's electric type mouse Pokemon, and then Smolly, just a small like early route grass Pokemon. And no evolutions at all have been shown yet. Not for the starters, not for any of the newly introduced ones. So those will obviously kind of as we ramp up marketing towards November 18th, I'm sure those will be coming through. And obviously people have been speculating on the starter evolutions for a while now. bets on whether or not Sprigatito will stay on all four or go to his hind legs once he evolves. I think that they'll keep him on all fours.
Nah,
Mm.
nah.
Mm.
They can't help themselves.
The precedent is there.
They can't help themselves. I also love how people memed about Sprigatito being a weed cat, and then like the most recent information we got about it is that it emits a sweet smelling aroma whenever it needs its paws, which makes people like basically become very calm and relaxed. And it's like, it's actually fucking weed cat.
This aroma has therapeutic qualities. It makes opponents lose their will to battle. Totally a weed
Does it
cat.
make them hungry too? Smoliv, watch out.
And then in related Pokemon news, this actually came a little bit before the trailer, that a longtime series co-founder, sorry, it's not series co-founder, the Game Freak co-founder, Junichi Masuda, is stepping down from Game Freak. He has been there for 33 years and is moving over into a role at the Pokemon Company itself as a chief creative fellow. So moving from the game development studio more to just the Pokemon Company in general. So kind of an interesting move because I never quite get how the puzzle pieces of how Creatures Inc., the Pokemon Company, and Game Freak totally like line together. So he's moving from Game Freak to Pokemon Company. It's not retirement like in the case of Shinji Hashimoto, but it'll be interesting to see how he moves on from a game-specific role to just a role for the under the IP in general. He basically says that he hopes to transcend the boundaries of video games to try to offer greater surprises and excitement and fun to fans all over the world. So it'll be interesting to see how he incorporates into his new role and what he brings to the Pokemon Company, because obviously the IP is already the largest in the world, but it sounds like he has some smart and fun ideas. So good luck to Junichi Matsuda.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how like Masuda has become like kind of like the face representative of Pokemon. Like we know when they're about to announce like a new mainline, Masuda is usually the one who unveils it during like a Nintendo stream. So it's really interesting to see like who will like step up to the plate and like kind of replace his managing director role at Game Freak. But yeah, this guy has been around since the very beginning of Game Freak and since the very first Pokemon games. He served as like a composer and programmer, like the Pokemon Red, Green, Blue, and then
he was the director of Pokemon Ruby, and then he has directed not every title, but titles since from Pokemon Ruby Generation 3 all the way through Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. Because he has been there a long time and in a director role for a good chunk of it. Because obviously he was the co-founder of Game Freak, so a huge talent that's been there a while. So I'd be interesting to see, like, obviously we've already kind of seen the games recently kind of get adventures and try new things. Maybe not at the pace that certain people would like, but Pokemon Legends Arceus was obviously maybe a step in the right direction for many, kind of a promising game as like a barometer for the future. And it'd be interesting to see like how he kind of takes that sort of growth that the series has seen then from the video game perspective and carried over into the Pokemon Company outside of the gaming realm. And there was actually one other game that was announced this week that I at least want to kind of put here at the mid part of the podcast. And that is that Owlcat Games, the developers behind the Pathfinder CRPGs, has announced a new project that is Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader as the first classic CRPG under the Warhammer IP. So I reviewed both Pathfinder Kingmaker and Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. I've kind of become a fan of Owlcat, even if their games have kind of been a little bit messy and a little bit kind of bug-ridden. I think they're really ambitious and really fun, and not a lot of developers nowadays are creating like these real-time with pause CRPGs. I will say, though, when I first read this headline about the announcement of Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, that we see so many Warhammer games that I don't like keep them straight. And honestly, when I was putting this podcast outline together, I put the wrong Warhammer title in there because we also got news this week that Warhammer Inquisitor Martyr, is that also Warhammer 40k or is that Warhammer?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
I don't even get these straight. Okay, Warhammer 40k Inquisitor Martyr is getting a next gen port later in the year. But the more interesting news is this Rogue Trader game. And it kind of like immediately, I'm not saying that Owlcat had to be married to Pathfinder for forever. I actually be interested to see what they could do with an original IP. But like, okay, if I'm going to play any Warhammer game, because there's so many and they start to blend together, I'll probably play this one because I know the developer. I think the trailer that they showed for it was a pretty cool, interesting mix of some pretty clean and fun looking 2D animation and their just in-game, even though it's an announcement trailer, some in-game footage of how the game will actually look from the classic isometric perspective. The premise seems pretty fun. I think the trailer looks pretty interesting. So yeah, I guess now I'll have to loop in Alex Seedhouse, who I think knows more about Warhammer than any of us here, as my guess. And basically, like, all right, if Warhammer is this giant kind of like nebulous mass, I have no idea where you approach it from. Might as well be this one. As far as I can tell, there has been no announcement of release windows at all, but it has been announced for PC and consoles. So they did not specify which consoles, which is not surprising because for both of their Pathfinder games, they would release them on PC and then typically in the next year port the games over to console. And they also have implemented kind of turn-based modes in their previous games to support that. So it's kind of cool that they see that they're kind of giving these games kind of life on console that maybe a few years ago they wouldn't get. They'd be kind of PC centric only. Want to give that a shout out. Maybe not as exciting or high profile as obviously Final Fantasy XVI, SaGa, or Pokemon, but a game that I'm looking forward to playing whenever it does get released.
No, I think a lot of Western RPG fans that this went under our radar about like you because of the the Pathfinder series developers on it, and it's like that's something very unexpected. Where it's like, oh man, I'm not really into Warhammer, but if these Pathfinder devs are on it, that that it's now reaching a new audience, and Warhammer 40K games aren't the type of games where you have to like play every single one to understand them. It's just like, hey, whatever Warhammer game looks cool to you, you should go check it out. It's not like you have to be so beholden to what the massive franchise is through every entry. You just kind of take it as it is. It's like, okay, sure, why not?
This might be a little bit like shallow, but a lot of times, and I think people, and naturally so, they kind of, the isometric perspective of CRPGs is almost seen as like a kind of maybe like a low budget thing or like a low visual presentation. But I think might sound a little bit silly, but I think that Owlcat makes like the prettiest looking isometric games out there because even the footage and the screenshots that we show are pre-alpha. But man, I think this game just looks really nice for a CRPG, which a lot of times with this type of perspective, it's more stylized or more artsy or even pixel based, where here it's just kind of, it looks like a high budget isometric CRPG, which I think is not a lot of people make those. And even like Obsidian made the Pillars of Eternity games, but it doesn't look like they're going to continue that due to the low sales of the previous ones. But we'll see, because there is an Xbox Bethesda showcase next week, or I think it's next week. It's in early June that
Next
we'll be reporting.
Sunday, I think.
Oh, so my just sneak past, not next.
Not next podcast, like right after next podcast. Yeah.
Couple other updates on some other games that we've mentioned in the past that we've been kind of waiting for news on. One of which is a game. This is an indie title from Chucklefish. Well, is Chucklefish really indie anymore? They're pretty good. They're pretty big size now. This is a title from Chucklefish that has been in development for a while. We first reported on it back, I think, in like 2017 before it had a name, and that is the upcoming Witchbrook. Witchbrook is a simulation game that takes place basically as a kind of like a Harry Potter type verse. Underneath the kind of like the same sort of paradigm as like Stardew Valley. It was re-revealed back in 2020 under its new name and new art style. And now it just launched its Steam page in the last week alongside a lot of new details and a lot of new screenshots. Still no release date for Witchbrook. Talks about some of the premise of the game about you're taking on the role of a student at a wizarding college. You're going out and completing assignments, and you're learning about spells, brewing potions, all sorts of witching and wizarding sorts of things. And I don't know, it just looks really charming. It looks really fun. It's been, I think a lot of people have been kind of looking forward to this for a while. Still kind of in that place, but we got a new Steam page for it and the new screenshots. So it looks like it's coming together nicely, and maybe good things just take time. But looks like a really fun, kind of well thought out, really feature rich product.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see like whenever they release like a trailer on it or anything, like all the little details about like you're just kind of living life through this Witchbrook College, attending classes, like trying to master like magic, getting to know like your peers, hanging out with them, developing like romantic relationships, and I think it's really funny that like you would think like in this type of game it's like, oh man, maybe graduation is like the the goal of this game. And it's like there's like some sort of component like where you continue the game after you graduate too from this witch college, which is interesting. So I mean, I'm really
Witchbrook
looking forward to
alumni.
yeah. So and like the screenshots, the few screenshots they showed off look very lovely. It looks better and better every time they show it. So take all the time you need. It's coming along really well.
We also finally, this is kind of a small update in the grand scheme of things, but we got a update on the upcoming new Dragon Age product that has been in kind of a development not quite hell since like 2018, 2017. We have a title for the next Dragon Age game, and it is Dragon Age Dreadwolf, which honestly is kind of like when they first revealed this game, like with concept art back at like one of the earliest Game Awards, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. They announced it with like a piece of concept art with the hashtag the Dreadwolf Rises. So now they're just announcing like 4 or 5 years later, yep, it's called Dragon Age Dreadwolf, obviously with a major focus on the character of Solus from Dragon Age 3. And there's some press release footage about the title and about Solus alongside this announcement. But unfortunately, that's pretty much it. It's kind of the title, a little bit of the premise of the game, and that's mostly it. No screenshots, no other footage, no details, no platform, no launch.
Yeah.
Okay. When did Dragon Age 4 technically get announced? Was it this last Game Awards or was it? The
No,
Game
it's been
Awards?
been years. It's like
It was like
Okay,
two or
I'm
three
gonna
Game
be blunt.
Awards.
I'm gonna be blunt here.
2018.
No,
2018, they said.
I'm going to be really blunt here. They shouldn't have bothered with this if they didn't have something to show us.
Yeah.
This is the most low-hanging fruit imaginable, and it does nothing for me as someone that just assumes that BioWare is not going to be able to deliver on this game after the 1-2 punch of Andromeda and Anthem. What are they doing? This is the news they give us after over a year and a half?
Yeah.
I also remember, I think it was like 2 years ago, or was it just last year, where they kind of announced that they are working on Mass Effect 5, like in a blog post, and then like a month later they had like the teaser trailer for Mass Effect 5 that also showed kind of nothing. It just felt a little bit awkward. Like
I would have to imagine this shows up like at like the Microsoft event or maybe the Summer Games Fest. Surely this is like leading up to like a more formal reveal to one of these June events, right?
Well, it wouldn't be at the
so.
Microsoft event unless they have third parties, but maybe it'd be a platform for it.
Well, EA's not doing anything this year, are they? So it could be Summer Games, it could be Microsoft, it could.
Yeah, because
for all we
they
know,
could
it could be
because
PC
they can
Gaming.
have like a marketing deal, like market
Mhm.
it on Xbox platforms, so
I mean, that would make sense because EA Play is part of Game Pass Ultimate, so it's like
yeah, there's no EA Play this year, right? They passed
Mhm.
this year. They did. So I imagine hopefully this is just like kind of getting this out of the way and then getting people's appetite for something. 'Cause if you have this news and then nothing happens this month for this, then it's like, okay, what was really the point of this? But we'll see.
And
We'll see.
it's not even like the title is that evocative. It's pretty like
Yeah.
a low hanging fruit. And the thing is, it's kind of interesting because this is like the first 3 Dragon Age games are obviously connected, but pretty like divorced from each other. And this one, like Dragon Age, Trespasser was the name of the DLC that kind of leads into Dragon Age 4 and has a big
you
focus
almost
on
have to, you have to play Dragon Quest or Dragon Age 3 and its DLC to like play this.
Well,
I mean, I
don't know where Josh you put in this this quote from the publisher underneath this news post, and I'm not sure if this was in the statement or not. It's like whether you're new to Dragon Age stories or you've experienced them all, using Solus's namesake no doubt suggests a spectrum of endless possibility. I'm like, what? This just seems like mealy mouthed. They're trying to say like you can play this regardless of whether you know who the Dreadwolf is or not. I was going to comment like, I remember really enjoying Trespasser when I played it, and I thought it's like, wow, not the possibilities are endless. It's a little bit trite, but like this is like a really engaging story. This is like why people love BioWare games in the first place. But like the farther removed we get from that, my memory, fades. Like, what is that? What was like? I had to remind myself, what is the conceit about Solus's character? How he like betrays you, and like he's got like he's like zero focused on a goal that's going to cost the lives of several others. But I don't remember like the framework of why that happened. It's almost like okay, I'll replay that maybe once I know that Dreadwolf is slated to come out, because it's the first time that a game seems like it's so intricately tied to what came before it without having that division between the entries and allowing you just to kind of enter wherever you'd like, even though they say that it is. But they didn't really provide any details, so it's just kind of like making a lot of assumptions and speculations. I'm kind of with James saying like,
Yeah, and I feel like for some context, part of what's coloring my thoughts, expectations is like my experience with Anthem, and very specifically, I did the preview, and I was actually relatively positive on it because they said, "Oh yeah, there's like these 3 like endgame activities that we're going to show off now. You can only play these 2. You can't technically talk about this 3rd one, but here's the 3 we have right now." And I was like, "Man, these are actually pretty fun. If they have a bunch of these, that'll be a pretty good slot for like slate for launch." And it's like the game comes out, those 3 things that we saw at the preview event are the only endgame activities, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
It's just
Uh,
I don't want to be that guy, but it's just like BioWare needs to give me a reason to trust them at this point, and they haven't.
Yeah, I think they're like in this weird period where like they're in the middle of like early development for a lot of these like long-awaited titles. Plus, they have to like they're also like in this weird transition of like trying to get goodwill back from people as well, and like try to make they make a lot of states like, oh, we're striving to get everyone's goodwill back essentially, and like make us trust in like the BioWare brand again, you know, because
Sounds a
like
bit more than they can chew.
the thing is, I actually really like all 3 Dragon Age games, and once like I am also like similarly kind of cynical, but like once this game has like a more squared up release, whether that's in like 2 years or 5, it's really hard to say. I will probably use that as an excuse to replay through the original trilogy. It's not even quite a trilogy, really. It's just 3 games in the same series. I think there's a slight nuance difference there, because I really enjoyed those games, and I like it's been a while since I played any of them, and it'd be a
yeah.
really cool excuse to replay them. So I'm kind of looking forward to it for on just on that point. I mean, I know I don't need like I can start replaying those at any point, but it'd be kind of cool to replay those as like a lead into this, allow myself to just be optimistic and get excited for this release. But I can't really do that when they just say, here's the title, enjoy. We did have a couple other game announcements this week, and this is from an indie developer, Shining Shoe, behind what is it, Monster Train. They've announced a co-op roguelike RPG called Inkbound. Has an isometric perspective, and it's a entirely co-op game. Well, I don't know if it's entirely co-op, but designed to be played in co-op. And we got a new trailer introducing the game. It is coming out next year for PC. No details on consoles yet. We were talking about this game just very briefly before recording this podcast. And Josh, it sounded like you were like pretty excited once you saw this announcement trailer. Have you played Monster Train?
I like Slay the Spire. I didn't really like get into Monster Train as much as like say a Slay the Spire, but I like that genre of like roguelike deck building. And Monster Train like was the cooler one, one of the cool ones. Though it didn't really hit for me as much as Slay the Spire. But this is a very very talented team, as Monster Train being their first game. Looking at the trailer and what they say about the combat about this game, it's like aiming for like a hybrid real time turn based combat. So you see, like a little bit of like in the footage there, like it's not quite action RPG, and you're still kind of taking your turn in the like even though you're like in this perspective, and like seeing how that'll like synergize with like a co-op environment, and also like they also taught like you can make all sorts of character builds based on like traits that you get throughout your run in this game. So obviously it's still like very much early in development, and not like they haven't like broken down all the details yet, but what they've shown of it is like up my alley. Like I really want to play this with friends and check it out. I mean, this just caught my eye and be like, oh yeah, you know me. I like my weird indie RPGs that like try something like really out there.
And I do think like I'm not a huge fan of roguelikes or roguelites, but I do think making it co-op would be a way to get me to like it'd be kind of a way to just kind of ease into it. Just like, all right, someone else is along for the ride too. So I think that'd be a really like a cool way to just get introduced to that style of game. Well, outside of those game announcements, we have a few just kind of like date updates here, a few release dates. and some information alongside those. I guess technically the Final Fantasy 16 announcement was a release window date, and then so was the Pokemon announcement was a release date announcement. We got
What
a
about
release
that
date.
random game? Sorry, I was like, what about that random game from Studio Psy that Elent Nights or whatever it was called? Internights, was it? Is it Internights?
Turn Knights. Yeah, that was shown at the PlayStation State of Play. We technically didn't cover it because they said it was an RPG, but when after that trailer was shown off, it was like an action game with dating sim elements, and the developers behind it were very enthusiastic, obviously, about their project because like the project was inspired by them playing through Persona 5, and then they played through other Persona games. They're like, we're gonna freaking make our own Persona S game, and it was like a direct obviously the elements of the trailer like definitely was inspired by Persona, and they confirmed like yes, we definitely made this game because we just love Persona so much. And you know what? More power to them. Go for it. So
Well, I was just gonna say, it's like that's one of the things we didn't cover. So
I mean,
probably a bigger release.
it's an action game. It's not an RPG. So
Hey, well, Final Fantasy 16 is an action game. I mean,
that
it
has
has numbers.
that has you're leveling up. There's damage numbers, and it's fucking Final Fantasy. It's an action RPG.
Yeah, even if they made a Final Fantasy game that clearly was not an RPG at all, I mean, I'm sure they have across the various spin-offs. Like we would cover it because Alex would make us. Also, we
Alex would make us. You're like adding it. It's like Alex would make us, and I guess you would want to as well. But I mean, if you want to check it out for us, Chow, if you're really enthusiastic for Return Nights, then you know who to ask, not me.
What I was going to say was that we got a release date for a game that we got a bunch of details on a couple months ago. This is Made in Abyss: Binary Star Falling into Darkness. This game was announced about a year ago or so, and we first got our first real set of details back in April. We learned about how it had 2 game modes. We learned some of the consoles that it was releasing on. This week we learned that the release date for this game will be September 2nd worldwide. Alongside the release date announcement, we got some information about the characters in the game's 2 game modes. Again, this is the Hello Abyss game mode, which recreates the original story, and then the Deep in Abyss, which is the game original storyline that's unique to this project. We got a couple of the voice actors and actresses for the characters, both in English and Japanese, alongside a little bit of a bio for each. I think all the artwork is old. I'm not certain. Some of it might be new for some of the minor characters. But we have that up on the site as well alongside the release date. So
I wish we had more press releases like this where they're allowed to share the English voice actor and actresses on them instead of kind of this I don't know if it's a stipulation or policy depending on how their contracts are, but for a lot of games, the English cast can only say that they're in the game once either the project has been announced or that when the game comes out and then they can say it.
Like, for example, Soul Hackers 2 is going to have English voices, and we have not heard them, and we know nothing about them.
Yeah. So hopefully, I don't know what it is in that side of the industry that doesn't allow them. Obviously, it's something to do with the contracts and the way it's how their process is standardized. But I wish we had more stuff like this where you could just share all the voice talent in the game, and that should be true for not just English and Japanese, but should just be if it's being dubbed in a certain language, you should be able to share the names of those people.
I know Square Enix has gotten better at this. Like, for example, I know Stranger of Paradise, they announced basically Japanese and English voices at the same time. Same thing with Diofield Chronicles. We already know who the voices are. I don't even know who the characters are, but if you want to look up the voices, you can find them.
I didn't know they have the voices for the English voices for them already. That's cool.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. I will say, especially looking at this cover art, I really, really hope parents pay close attention to the ESRB rating for this game. I really, really hope they pay close attention.
I highly doubt it. I mean, I've seen parents buy their kids Call of Duty all the time. It's they don't care.
But especially if somebody sees this game at let's say GameStop, and maybe they don't know anything about the ESRB rating. They see the character designs and it's oh man,
adorable.
And it's they get it for their their son or their daughter, and it's yeah, no,
lovely game, lovely content.
There's gonna, I'm gonna make a prediction. Probably the easiest read ever. there's going to be at least one kid that gets traumatized because their parents buy them this game without knowing any better.
Just buy your little niece Magica Medica, just like that.
I bet you this game only gets like well known if like people like enough, like if like some big people like do like a reaction video of like something that happens in the game.
Yeah, it's like I feel bad for Spike Chunsoft like preemptively because it's like it's gonna happen. We know it's gonna happen.
Well, that's the risk you take when made out of this, making a game.
Back to the 90s again. Nobody's gonna pay the ratings for it, and they're gonna sue the government for it.
That's
I
right.
think kind of coincidentally, they just released a trailer for the second season coming out.
Yeah, it's coming up soon, like next season. So that'll be fun. I'm excited to watch it. Very wholesome, non-violent, only good feelings.
Well,
Animation.
I mean, Josh, it's available on Disney Plus in Japan. If it has the Disney seal of approval, obviously it's perfectly fine for.
Yes, of course. Yes. As we all know, Disney Plus only anime, only the most wholesome and pure, and not crazy at all. And for background, there's like a new BlackRock shooter this season that is only on Disney Plus in Japan, and it is incredibly not good for kids, or rather any age group. But there's some very questionable and violent and not good stuff in it. I've heard.
Yeah.
Here's another sort of release date. We learned about the Sega Mega Drive Mini 2 will release on October 27th in Japan, alongside a full list of games that have been revealed on the live stream announcing this date for the Mega Drive 2 Mini 2. And the highlights here that I can see are basically like Shining Force CD, Shining in the Darkness, Sonic the Hedgehog CD, a few other games on here that I'm not as familiar with, and no other announcement here for any sort of Western release for this mini console. But it also has a Sega CD RPG made by Falcom called Popful Mail. I don't know anything about this, but
I own that game though. I own the working design version. They go for like $1,000 on eBay nowadays.
Yeah, it's so
kind of
very unfortunate that this is going to be the working designs version, from what I understand.
Didn't they make that one like way harder?
That's what they always did. Like,
and I know working designs, oddly enough, back in the day, they would actually like change game balance and things.
They
like that
changed the game
like
hard.
Alundra, like I listened to another podcast and somebody just went through the working designs version of Alundra, where it's like enemies take twice as much damage and they deal and you deal like half damage or something.
No. How it goes is that in the Japanese version, you have twice as much health and the enemies hurt less, but they also have twice the life bar, so the battles kind of drag on.
Yeah, that's the working designs version that I thought it was the original version, but
you know what on earth happened to Vic Ireland? Because he's not dead. Like somebody on Reset Era just outright said that no, he's still alive, and it's like, but what happened to Gaijin?
Retired.
Yeah, like what happened?
He reached retirement age.
Yeah, without telling anyone, just fucking disappeared.
It's a shame that these don't get like a domestic release stuff, because it's very hard like on supply chain and getting the chips already. So that's why like making an international release of these Sega Mini consoles is like it's difficult. But the game lineup.
Didn't the Genesis Mini actually get?
Did it? I thought it didn't. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it did, because I mean,
what was it? Was it the same? Was it the same time or later?
Yeah, it was the same time. Yeah,
oh,
I mean,
okay.
like I remember because like Zach was definitely making a big deal about it, which I mean makes sense. It's his job, but yeah.
Okay, then. Well, we'll see if this releases over in the West. I had no idea that the first one did.
Yeah.
But these have the both the Japanese and American versions for some of them, like Sonic CD.
What was it?
I want to say the original Genesis Mini also lets you like switch to the other versions. So
okay.
I was just gonna say like the Sonic CD. There is a good reason to play different regions, because they had like a different composer for each version, so you could play with different music if you preferred. Just because they just got to like some license disputes, so they weren't sure to use the same composer or something like that, and they just composed new tracks for the American version.
That's cool. Sure, October 27th in Japan.
But obviously, if you're in like the homebrewed scene, you can use the old Mini to play Sega CD games. So
There
I
we
don't
go.
know. I don't know what this has to offer, like
Hmm.
completely new for like a market. It's like, is it even like a more beefier
It's
hardware?
it's for the people who want, like, like they want the aesthetic of like owning them, just like not taking up as much space. Like and it's also for the crowd that like they don't really want to like go to like the extreme hardcore end, like with going with a Mister. Like they want something that's very plug and play.
Though I also feel like this Mini missed out on two gems of a game. They missed out the two Lunar games on the Sega
Yeah.
CD, and I feel like that's like the trademark Sega CD game.
I don't think they've announced all the games yet, have they? Or is it just like the initial lineup and then they're gonna announce more, or is this like the actual full lineup? Because it says this will have over 50 games and then they only showed off the first 11.
But
So
I don't know, the wordings are kind of confusing because this had 50 games, but that also could include the old regular Sega library, right? So
Okay, so the only games that they have listed so far on the Japanese website, and apparently they haven't actually technically announced this for the West yet. There's Sylphid, which is a CD game, Shining Force, CD, well, obviously Sonic CD. What game is this?
Mansion of Hidden Souls.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Pop Full Mail, Virtual Racing,
Virtual Racing,
Bonanza Brothers.
Uh,
And then Brian mentioned Shining in the Darkness. Then Thunder Force 4. Hell yeah.
Yep.
Magical Taruruto and Fantasy Zone. Those are the first 11. And then they said this will contain over 50 games. So I assume they haven't.
Matt tells me that's
I've heard really good things about Magical Taruruto.
I've heard of it. I've never actually played it.
I do think it's perfectly in character that Chow's like, yeah, I have that game for Popful Mail. So you can get the you can import the Mega Drive 2 Mini or Mini 2. Is it 2 Mini or Mini 2? 2 Mini.
Mega Drive Mini 2.
And compare whatever emulation solution they have on the Mega Drive Mini and compare it to the real deal.
2 Mega 2 Drive.
I was just gonna say, like, there's only like one version of Pop-Up Mill I don't have. It's the Super Nintendo version.
You'll have to wait for the Super Famicom Mini 2.
I have a different lineup. I highly doubt it because it's probably the least favorite version out of the free. I mean, there's also a PC Engine version as well. So
the final bit of news here is more just of a tease for future information, and that is regarding Star Ocean: The Divine Force. We were expecting originally to get some news in the spring of this year, but the Japanese Twitter account, speaking of those series-specific Twitter accounts for Square Enix, announced in the week that they are realizing that they're behind what they originally said, but that we should expect new information about Star Ocean: The Divine Force later this month. So probably a formal release date. We already know that, or at least currently announced that it's releasing this year. We just don't know when. So yeah, we don't know when later in June we'll see that. So stay tuned for more news on that. And that's all I have listed for this podcast. So quite a lot to talk about as we finally arrived in June. As we've kind of touched on throughout different parts of this podcast, we have the Microsoft event, we've got the Summer Festival, no E3, no EA Play, but other opportunities. We obviously have the State of Play. Who knows if you might see a Nintendo Direct that normally takes place around their summer time frame for that information. So kind of ramping back up into filling out our calendars for new July, August, September releases for the year. We have the two features up on the site that we discussed earlier in the podcast for the EX2 review and the Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak impressions. We have a lot of different news articles about the Final Fantasy XVI information. You can always search by game and just see everything on the site, feature-wise, news-wise, about anything that comes out of the State of Play and our impressions on it for that game. And of course,
I guess before we wrap up, like we should probably just do one more, June in advance like type of deal, because there's a lot of like upcoming events and streams in June. There's going to be no E3 this year, but in its place, there's like a whole shitload of like events incoming. So we already had like the Warhammer stuff, the State of Play happened. We had the Sega new project, was the mini drive for So like upcoming, we have like the Acquire Game Show, which is tomorrow actually, as of the time of this recording, early in the morning for that one. Limited run games will be June 6th. Summer Game Fest, which is kind of the next big one, is next Thursday on June 9th. The Guerrilla Collective Showcase, I'm not exactly sure what these are, Adam. Is it just like an indie showcase?
Guerrilla Collective is just indies. It's just
Okay.
like, yeah, it's not necessarily Guerrilla Collective is not really like a publisher. They're just like literally like a platform. Like they just, hey, indies, just submit your pitches or your videos or whatever, your announcements to us, and we'll put them in a stream. That's basically what it is.
Mhm.
So, hey, but sometimes some cool stuff is shown in those indie
The
streams.
June 11th it seems to have a lot. Like right after the Guerrilla Collective, you have the Wholesome Direct, which is like for kind of like a games of a certain tone, like a wholesome tone. They like to
When is
highlight there.
IGN? I don't think I have IGN in this list. Let's see.
Oh yeah, I don't. They announced a date I think for that, but I'm not exactly sure. After the Wholesome Direct on June 11th, show there's like 3 streams back to back.
IGN Expo is on June 10th. So
June
it's like
10th.
also just mixed in there.
Okay.
So
Okay. We'll write that down there. And then the following day on June 12th, the next big one there is the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. So it's going to be a very busy week up ahead, and the PC Gamer show after that, and then we get a little like lull for a while with an Indie Games Connect at the end of the month on June 25th. There, so that's kind of the most of the stuff is happening this upcoming week, and especially this upcoming weekend.
So we might be able to get a little bit on the front end for next week's podcast, but it sounds like most of it will be 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I think like during the runtime of like this podcast recording, something is probably going on. Like like it's not the Xbox thing, but it's like the back-to-back streams. The indie stuff.
We'll be able to say breaking news, and then it's not really breaking news.
If there's anything there,
because our podcast is recorded.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. But yeah, even though there's no E3, that hasn't stopped people from, trying to get their news out around this time frame. So hopefully some cool stuff is happening in the world of RPGs, as if we already didn't get enough with FF16 this past week.
As always, you can find RPG Site on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for RPG Site. You can join our Discord at discord.gg/RPG Site, or click the link at the top of the homepage, or just go to rpgsite.net and just look through all the news articles and features that we have up on the site, because it's been a busy week and it sounds like it's going to stay that way for a while. So thanks to Josh, Adam, Kite, and all the others that kind of keep up on top of all of that, because it's always a lot every day to keep that maintained, especially when all the release dates come out and we make sure we get all those recorded and locked down. I use Adam's release date listing all the time as I look forward to what's coming out in each month. And obviously we do post those on Twitter as well at the start of each month. But until you hear from us next week with the first news that we get out of some of these earlier streams for these summer gaming events, take care, stay safe, and we'll talk to you next time.